Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, the Iron Fanfics, back with amazing fanfiction. This is the series of What If Deku Becomes Genius Commander. Now before starting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. Izuku will never be able to get over the sunset, no matter how destroyed the country and society have become. The colors remind him of Shudo and Kaken, and even if just the thought of his fallen comrades makes his chest tight, he will never give up anything that reminds him of them. Just like how the shine of the midday sun over the broken city skyline reminds him of Tenya. Or how the sight of the retrashed Dagoba beach will remind him of Tsu and Tashinori. Or how a thunderstorm reminds him of Denki, or a moonless night reminds him of Fumikage, or there are far too many, and yet not nearly enough, reminders of those that they have lost along the way. Problem child. Shuda's voice sounds behind him. Izuku doesn't startle, he had heard the familiar limping footsteps as light as they were, coming up from behind. The nickname makes him smile nostalgically. He only ever calls him anything other than Deku when they are somewhere relatively safe. Nowhere is truly safe these days. You shouldn't be outside, we don't want to attract attention. Come on. Momo managed to gather a decent spread of food on her last supply run. Izuku sighs long and quietly, taking one last chance to look at the fading light of the sunset before he pulls himself back up onto the roof. He dusts himself off gently, as though it'll make much of a difference. His hero's suit has long since turned black from the dirt, grime, and dried blood. It isn't like they have the ability to wash themselves very often, let alone their war-torn, too small for some of them, too big for others, nasty, patchy old hero costumes. Izuku turns to his old teacher, his now brother-in-arms, silently. As he looks at Eraserhead, a nostalgic image of the man from before flashes across his vision. Eraserhead has long since lost the sight in his right eye, his left leg missing from just below the knee and his right arm held close to his chest as it tries to recover from the recent break. Once upon a time long gone, Eraserhead was mighty, tall and strong. The rhyme makes another pang of grief and nostalgia ring in his chest. Eri loved rhymes. Her loss is the freshest and most painful one to date. Izuku's little hero, gone in the blink of an eye. He looks away from Shoyuta before the tears can build. There is no time or place for grief anymore. Even on grieving day, he can't make himself grieve like he should. The two of them make their way back down the crumbling, abandoned building that was once an apartment building. All the way to the basement. It takes longer than they probably should have, but today is the anniversary of the first loss of the war. The end of before and beginning of the end. Nezu, the little genius rat, was a very strategic loss for the enemy. Take out the brain and the body stops functioning. Joke's on them, Nezu wasn't the only brain. He was just the greatest one they had. Izuku helps Shoyuta down the last few feet to the basement, since the stairs were long since destroyed. Shoyuta frowns in frustration at his weakness, but he doesn't say anything. Maybe he understands that helping someone, even just a little bit, makes Izuku feel less despair. Or maybe he hates to admit that he's not the underground legend he used to be. Maybe it's both. There you are, Momo says. Her relief is not hidden very well in her tone, but she doesn't show it on her face. He didn't mean to worry her, but at this point, without being within her eyesight at all times, there's no point in trying not to. He understands. Loss affects people differently. Mei hands Izuku both his and Shuda's meal as he passes, a tight smile on her lips. Immediately after handing Izuku the food, half a can of non-perishable tomato soup for each of them, she turns back to her support item repairs in silence. It's a recent development as well. After the loss of Power Loader 2 months ago, Mei has not spoken a word, not even to talk about her babies. Grief hangs heavy in the air. Everyone knows the date, the anniversary. The one day of the year they allow themselves to just grieve and hide and let go of the fight. Nito lands behind them not even a minute later, grimy blonde hair tied tight in a braid that reaches his shoulder blades. I've secured the perimeter. No signs of any Nomu or League members. Nito informs. His voice is quiet, nearly a whisper, due to an injury he had gotten years ago to his throat. The same day Present Mike met his end. He can barely speak anymore, but he still fights with all the fury and mania of someone who's lost almost everything. He's the last of Old 1B. Toshi, Shoyuta says, and Izuku turns around to see him nudging Hitoshi awake with his crappy prosthetic made of random materials. Since they saved his knee joint, it didn't have to be anything fancy, at Shuta's demand. Even now, years and years later, he still systematically shuts Momo down on her offer for a better one. They all do. Momo's quirk is reserved for medical supplies, small parts for repair work, and sometimes a new knife when one of theirs breaks or is lost. Get your butt up or I'm eating your portion. Lay off, old man. Hitoshi groans out, muffled by the torn-up capture weapon he uses as a pillow. I'm up. Izuku, in the resulting silence that always descends over mealtime, surveys all the remaining survivors of the last remaining rebel faction. Momo, whose hair is sheared in a short, choppy bob that is a homage to Kyoka, is carefully wrapping a blanket over Mei's shoulders, even as she doesn't acknowledge it. Nito, who rubs his scarred throat after every small bite, is resharpening everyone's blades. Hitoshi, who eats so fast it might make him nauseous later and then passes right back out, possibly from quirk overuse. He's been pushing himself further and further with every fight since Eri was killed. Mei, who doesn't even bother, slides her portion to Momo and returns back to her tinkering. Eijiro is in the corner, re-sewing the gloves that used to be Kaken's, with a few silent tears falling down his face. Izuku doesn't draw attention to it. Snipe, Yurashi, and Ectoplasm are all holding a quiet conversation, probably planning for the next round of patrols. Hanta is using his tape to patch the holes in everyone's torn-up costumes as much as he can. And that's it. 11. The last 11 who still choose to fight back. Only 3 who were already heroes, only 7 who were heroes in training, 1 isn't even from UA, and 1 lone support designer. 3, 7, and 1. They really are pathetic, aren't they? How are 11, or perhaps just 10, trained heroes supposed to overturn the apocalypse? 10 heroes against an army of villains. 11 rebels. Is that all that they had been reduced to? Izuku. Momo says, getting his attention quietly as she sits beside him, pressed close to his side for some semblance of comfort. He wraps an arm around her gently and holds her close. It's a small thing, but it makes her feel better to be touching them when she can. After a moment, he pulls his arm back to his side as she holds onto it tightly. Yemo. Do you think it's truly possible? Momo asks. And the question silences the room. All attention is on them now. Even Eijiro looks up, Hitoshi opens his eyes, and Mei looks away from her work. He wishes he could pretend he doesn't know what she's asking of him. Izuku takes a deep breath, closing his eyes briefly as he reminds himself what it is she wants to know. What everyone is looking to him for answers for. Izuku was approached 3 weeks ago by a civilian. Said civilian, a man named Ikimi Kazuko, told Izuku that he had a quirk that made it possible to send someone back in time. Or rather their consciousness. Izuku hadn't really believed it at first. It seemed too good to be true. But the man proved it by telling Izuku the secret Izuku had apparently told him, although nothing about one for all, as much as it doesn't matter anymore. After 2 weeks of secret meetings between the two of them, Izuku was sent back himself. A week after that he told the others that he has a way to fix everything by going back in time. That was yesterday. He's refused to talk about it more due to grieving day. He opens his eyes again. The room has gone devastatingly still as the 10 people staring at him wait for an answer. I do. He proved it by telling me a secret about myself that he should not have known no matter how much digging he did into my past. Izuku responds. According to Ikimi, he doesn't know if he can send all 11 of us back though. Not if we go back to before it all began. Does he know the limits to his quirk? Shoyuta asks. Izuku tries not to sigh. This is their grieving day. He wanted to hold off until after today, so that they all can grieve in peace. Grieving day is not for strategizing further than perimeter checks. It's not for fighting a war. I told you all I don't want to dash. Please, Zuku. Mei says the first word she's spoken in 2 months. Her voice is scratchy and unused. Izuku is helpless, unable to deny her. Not when she sounds so sad. He does sigh this time, but he smiles shakily anyways, hoping to bring some comfort to everyone in the basement with it. It's hard to smile when he has nothing and no one to smile for after all. But he has his brothers and sisters, his comrades, his last remaining family. He can smile for them at least. He feels some of the tension in Momo's shoulders ease slightly because of it, and that's all he can really hope for these days. He places a hand over the one's gripping his arm before letting it fall and letting her keep her hold on him. Alright, gather round everyone, Izuku says, and there's some brief shifting as they all form a circle. According to Akemi, he's been able to send himself back all the way to the beginning multiple times. He's never really sent anyone else back that far though, so it'll be a new experience all around. How does it work? Hitoshi asks, seeming more awake than he has been in days. The energy used for his quirk materializes in the form of a marble-like sphere. While thinking of a specific year, you have to crush the marble between your teeth. He's used it on me already, Izuku says. It's the only reason why we still have Snipe. I managed to save him with it. Snipe, not having known this beforehand, judges slightly, his hands going to tug at his dreadlocks much like Momo used to do before she cut her hair off. Any side effects? Hana asks. He's still working on patching the holes as they speak. Izuku will have to hand over his hero suit later to get his own patching done. At this point his costume is more tape than fabric. Maybe he should take Momo up on the offer of a new outfit, but he doesn't want to waste her quirk. She's already too thin. A few minutes of nausea and disorientation, phantom pains from old wounds, and a slight headache. Izuku answers. How it works is, instead of sending your body, it sends your consciousness, or maybe just your memories, back in time to your old body. When the jump, as he calls it, is a short one, he can specify the day, or even the hour, that you want to go back to. But in longer jumps like we'll be making, it'll automatically send you to midnight on the morning of that year's birthday. So we wouldn't all appear at the same time. So the first of us would be Ecto. Shoyuta says. Izuku nods in response. If all 11 of us manage to jump, then yes. Ectoplasm in March, May in April. Nito in May. Hitoshi, then me, then Hanta in July. Momo first, then Yurashi in September. Aijiro in October. Snipe and then Eraser, a day apart, in November. Which, of course, means that I'm the last one to show up. Fantastic. Shoyuta grumbles. Izuku smiles a bit at his misfortune. So, what happens if we can't all jump? Aijiro asks next. Depending on what the limit would be, we would have to make a decision on who goes back. Of course there is always a chance that we go one at a time on this end, but it would be a lot of risk to Akemi to be near us for that long of a time. So who would we have to send if we have to choose a limited amount? Hitoshi asks. I would like to remove myself from the running please. Momo says quietly. Izuku looks at her in shock and concern. She has her body curled around his arm, her head tucked into his shoulder. Emo? Why? Nito's voice is near silent, but they all hear him anyway. Momo shifts closer to Izuku again, holding onto his arm tighter. Her smile is dry as she raises her head. Is it really so surprising? After Kyo, I've been unable to do hardly anything more than patch you all up. Every time one or more of you leave, it sends me into a near panic attack. I wouldn't be much use the way I am now. Momo says. And besides, if we go back, I'll be in my younger self's body, in my old home. My childhood was extremely strict, I wouldn't manage to disappear quietly, or sneak out at night if we decided to stay. But, Momo, you can see Kyuka again. Aijiro says quietly. Momo smiles sadly at him. Eiji, that's the problem. I wouldn't be able to pretend like I don't know her if I happened to pass her on the street. I wouldn't be able to stay away, or keep myself together and not break down in tears. Momo explains. Izuku has to admit, her reasoning is sound. If he sees Kaken or Shudo, or his mother or Tashinori or Ochako or... Then maybe I shouldn't dash, he starts to say. You have to go Deku. Shoyuta cuts him off sharply. Izuku's head snaps up from where he had let it drop. Why? Looks are shared around the circle. Hitoshi is the one to answer him. giving him a deadpan stare that could have rivaled Shudo when they first met. Isn't it obvious? You are our leader, the mastermind. Not to mention you have a near photographic memory. If we want to fix everything, which I'm sure we do, you're the best bet at remembering all the information we'll need. Your quirk analysis is invaluable, you have a mind for strategy comparable to Nezu, and most of all, you will know when to stop. When to stop? Not everyone who brought the end is unsavable. Some of them could be saved before they turned down the path of villainy and destruction. I can name 3 off the top of my head. Hitoshi holds up his hand, his right, which still has all of his fingers, and counts those 3 off. Dabi, Toga, and Hawks to start. Possibly even Shigaraki. The reminder of Hawks, who turned traitor due to his treatment by the Commission, stings. He's the reason Nezu is dead. He's the reason today is Grieving Day. Shoyuta killed him a few months later in revenge. Eraserhead's first kill, and the event that got the ball rolling. I guarantee that at least half of us might not be able to hold back from killing someone for crimes they haven't committed yet. You're not like that, Izuku. I bet you still think even Shigaraki can be saved. Hitoshi continues. Izuku doesn't bother to contradict him. Shigaraki is a homicidal, psychopathic, villainous maniac, but he is still just a victim. All for One is the reason Shigaraki is the way he is. Izuku hates him, and Shigaraki isn't free of blame, but he is still a victim of his upbringing. Well, based on Mo's logic, I don't think I should go either. Aijiro suddenly says, I would give anything to see Katsuki again, but it would break me to do so when he won't be my Katsuki. He won't call me, he won't kiss me, hell he'd probably just be mean to me. Okay, so that leaves 9 of dash. 8. Mei says. She doesn't elaborate, and no one asks her to. Shoyuta corrects himself after a moment, clearing his throat and looking back at Izuku. That leaves 8 of us left. Technically 7, since we all agree Deku should go no matter what. Hitoshi says. Izuku twists his lips as he thinks about the best options of who should go. It's easy to choose the next person. Eraserhead has to go as well. His quirk will be invaluable. And also, Izuku doesn't want to go without him. Most days Shoyuta is all that keeps him standing tall for the others. He lets Izuku be weak, vulnerable. He lets him speak his thoughts and doubts and emotions without judgment or pity. He lets Izuku break when he refuses in front of everyone else. How he got the position of their leader is beyond him sometimes. Fine, whatever. Shoyuta grunts. Izuku can't read the look on his face since it's buried in his capture scarf. For we continue, I think a decision must be made. Snipe says. For Hooer jumps, the choice must be made on whether to disappear without a word and focus on the mission, or to go about their days as normal and use the night for the mission. In my opinion, I think we need to just disappear. Hitoshi responds, picking at his nails with strange intensity. I think I speak for everyone that it would be too much for us to pretend to be who we aren't anymore. There's been too much death, loss, and blood on our hands. We've been through too much for us to fly completely off the radar around those who know us best. At least when the mission is over, we can claim trauma for the holes in our stories. Not to mention that once I go back, Nezu will immediately see something wrong in the way I act around everyone. Rat always was too smart for my own good. Shoyuta adds. Almost simultaneously, Snipe, Ecto, and Shoyuta all mutter, praise the rat god, under their breaths, an old joke turned into a phrase of honor. Then I won't go. Hirashi says. I couldn't do that to my family. It wouldn't matter either way for me. Nito immediately adds on quietly, rubbing his throat absent-mindedly. I was a foster child. Me too. Hitoshi mumbles. He clears his throat and speaks louder. So Deku and Eraser are musts, Nito and I are possible. Inasa, Mei, Aijiro, and Mo are out. That leaves Snipe, Ectoplasm, and Hanta. Personally, I don't think I would be a great asset in the jump. Due to my quirk, I'm easily identifiable. Hanta says, gesturing loosely to the large dispensers on his elbows. Then I, as well, cannot go. Ectoplasm says, I think it'd raise too much attention if 2 UA teachers disappeared, so I'm have tea back out. Snipe responds. One'll already be too much attention as is. So to reiterate, Hitoshi says, Deku and Eraser are musts, Nito and I are possibilities, and everyone else is out. So if we can manage 4, then all 4 of us will go. But at minimum Eraser and Deku are going. Good talk. Do we want to leave it at that tonight? Izuku asks. Another round of looks around the room. No, let's hash it all out. Right now. Eijiro says, gritting what's left of his shark teeth. I can't stand another minute of silence. Grieving day. Let's make the most of tonight and make a plan to save the world. For Katsuki. And Kyuka. Momo adds, voice cracking but still strong. A round of quiet agreements around the room, names of those they'd lost floating across the room before it silences. Izuku looks at them in silence for a moment, and Eijiro holds his gaze. He looks more determined than he has in years. Izuku looks around the room, meeting 9 more gazes just like Eijiro. These people, the last of his family, are ready to end this war once and for all. Izuku's lips stretch in the sharpest smile he's made in years. Then let's get started. Izuku says. And for the first time in what feels like an eternity, every single one of his remaining family smiles in response. Ikimi Kazuko, in Shuda's opinion, is a very plain, very unassuming man. In all honesty, he kind of reminds Shoyuda of Tsukachi. Average height, plain brown hair that's longer than Tsukachi's hair ever was in all the years Shoyuda knew the detective. Blue eyes, frown lines, pale white skin. Plain, but not unhandsome. Hisashi could have outshone him. Any day of the week. Ikimi's shoulders hang heavy, like a heavy burden weighs them down. Given that this man is their last chance of survival, maybe Shoyuda isn't too far off the mark. His eyes are red-rimmed, and Shoyuda could know that kind of grief with his eyes closed. Like after all, he's lost a child. Shoyuda turns his eyes, or just away in polite ignorance. Let the man grieve in peace. Instead, he looks at Izuku, his biggest problem child. Izuku's tired eyes still shine with determination, days of planning for the past having lifted the blanket of grief he usually carries like a second skin. It's been a long time since he's seen Izuku so alive. Which is saying something, given he could blow away with a particularly harsh wind. Shoyuda hates watching his last remaining kids slowly starve to death. Between the borders having been shut down for years, the League ruling with an iron fist, and having to keep moving, which means packing light, it's no wonder they are starving to death. What food they do find is already rare, given that stores and markets across the country have long since been scavenged. At the thought of food, his stomach tightens, but it doesn't growl. His stomach gave up the cry for attention a long time ago. Ikimi greets them all quietly as he settles into their new temporary safe house. Not much of a house though, given 2 walls are nearly completely rubble. Welcome Ikimi. I'm glad you got my message for the relocation. We've already hashed out our plans. We just need to clear a few things up with you, and then we're ready when you are. Izuku says, standing tall and shaking Ikimi's hand with as much dignity as a starving man who has seen too much can. It's a surprising amount, in Shuda's opinion. No need for formality, Deku. Call me Kazu. Ikimi says, his lips formed in a tight smile. What's the need for political correctness when we have no government, right? As you wish then, Kazu. Call me Izuku or Deku, I don't care either way. Izuku responds easily. Shoyuda never understood how Izuku can keep up his smile all these years, even if it pains him to smile. Hopefully, after the jump, Izuku can smile like he used to again. Nito comes to stand against the wall beside him, bringing his attention away from his thoughts. Hey kiddo. Shoyuda greets quietly, keeping his eyes on the outside, watching for danger as Izuku and the others finish with the last of the plan. Nito doesn't say anything, and Shoyuda understands why. The past 3 days he's talked more than he has since Hisashi died. His voice is probably gone, though whether permanently remains to be seen. Nito waves his hand to grab Shuda's attention. How do you feel about the jump? Nito signs to him, and Shoyuda hums non-committedly. That's not exactly an easy question to answer. On one hand, Shoyuda is a hero. Or he was in the before. Going back in time, stopping the end, saving his kids and his friends and random civilians he'll never know the names of. It's all a dream come true. He can see his sunshine again, and watch his kids grow up and become heroes the way they were supposed to, instead of watching them die one by one in a war they didn't deserve to be thrown into. He can show them how to be a hero, instead of having to teach them the best way to kill. But on the other hand, is he really ready to face all the people he's lost when they won't even know what he's been through with them? Can he face a Tenya who didn't sacrifice his life to save the rest of his class? A Katsuki who never took out an entire armada of villains and Nomu alone so the others could get to safety, turning himself into a nuclear suicide bomber and destroying the entirety of Hokkaido? Can he face a Shudo who still shuts everyone around him out instead of being the closest thing to a therapist for everyone before he was taken and broken? Can Shoyuta look his sunshine in the eyes and not break down in grief? He doesn't know if he can do that. And he doesn't know if he'll be able to walk away without a word like they planned. Shoyuta would have to disappear on his own FANG birthday because he knows he's too damaged to play pretend like he isn't for even a day. What kind of husband must he be to not be able to look Hizashi in the eyes? I don't know, kiddo. Shoyuta finally answers. When he looks to make sure no one is paying attention, he curls an arm around Nito's shoulders to press the kid into his side. Yurashi and Nito may not have started out as his kids, but they sure as hell are now. It's been years since these two came to this group, after Squad B, or Old 1B as the other kids call it, and Squadus, Yurashi's old class, were systematically wiped off the maps. Now it's only Squad A left and not many of them. Shoyuta tunes into the conversation Izuku and Kazu are having just as Izuku finishes explaining the nature of his quirk. So what do you think? Will I be jumping with my quirk, or will I be quirkless again? Kazu breathes out long and slow, seeming to be processing the new information. If Shoyuta were a betting man, and if he had anything left to bet with, he would say Kazu is reeling more from the fact that one for all can't be taken by force, rather than the whole history of it all. It's easier to accept a quirk that can be passed on to another like a torch, what with the whole all for one thing. Theoretically, Izuku will always be the last one standing. Shigaraki, who is also all for one now, can take any of their quirks at any moment. But in Izuku's case, he has to give it willingly. And from experience, not even prolonged torture will force that kid to give up one for all. He's certainly become a force of nature over the years, picking up skills left and right, becoming his own one-man army. A strategic and analytical mind on par with Nezu, an aim as sharp as snipes. The agility Shoyuta himself carries, or used to carry before he lost his FANG leg. The rage and determination of Bakugo Katsuki. A heart of gold and stone like Tashinori, the skill with a blade like Stain or Toga. The experience of a quirkless kid which gives him empathy. Maybe if All for One had killed Deku first, they wouldn't have lasted this long. It's a train of thought that Shoyuta has often gone down. If he was All for One, before the war truly went full swing, he would have killed Deku right after the last sports festival. Izuku didn't have control of his terrifying quirk yet, he hadn't gained the quirks of the past users yet, and he had revealed to the world exactly who he was. Not that anyone but All for One. Deku, All Might, Night Eye, Tsukachi, Gran Torino and Nezu knew that yet. If he had been in All for One's shoes, he wouldn't have waited until the summer camp to make the first move, and then consequently fail, and lose to All Might in their last fight. In all honesty, Shoyuta believes that Izuku is the only reason they lasted for as many years as they have. Shoyuta had tried his best to lead after Nezu was killed, but he was never meant to be an army commander. He's too brash, he doesn't take instruction easily, and he never had the mind for strategic battle. He's an ambush fighter, at worst an assassin. He's not good at the whole leadership thing. Or the follower thing. Ever since he was a kid, Shoyuta has always been a lone wolf who doesn't play well with others unless it's absolutely necessary. But Izuku? Izuku was born to lead, quirk or no. Izuku has the heart, mind, soul, and strength of will needed of a leader. When Izuku took command alongside his classmates, they didn't look to Tenya or Momo, the class reps, for direction. They looked at Izuku. Even Katsuki, who is too much like Shoyuta when it comes to the whole lone wolf thing, would listen to Izuku's instructions. And only Izuku. Not even Ijiro could command him. Honestly, I don't think so. It's only the memories or the consciousness that gets jumped. Kazu replies, bringing Shuta's attention out of his head again. He's been doing that a lot lately, becoming stuck in his own head. He hopes to break that habit when they jump. If you jump to a time where you didn't have a quirk, which I assume you will, then I don't think it's possible. Sorry, Izuku. Izuku shrugs it off, but Shoyuta sees the sorrow in his eyes at the information. It's alright, even if I did keep one for all, I wasn't planning on using it for the mission unless absolutely necessary. It draws too much attention, and we plan to be shadows in the dark. Kazu smiles at him, but it's weak. Shoyuta isn't the only one who sees the sorrow in Izuku's eyes. Which reminds him. I have a question. Shoyuta says. You say you've jumped to the beginning a few times, right? That is correct. Kazu says. Then why is all of this still happening? Why didn't you change things? Shoyuta asks, and he keeps the judgment out of his voice. It's a valid question. If he's always had the ability to change things, why are they still the same? Why is the country still on its knees? Kazu winces at the question anyways. The thing is, I did change things. Kazu says, sweeping an arm to gesture around them. The first jump was not nearly as bad as this timeline. Every time I go back and interfere in any way, things have only gotten worse. I've tried enlisting the help of the real heroes, but no one believes me. We still endure an apocalypse. I go back and meddle by myself. We still endure an apocalypse. This time, I'm deciding to send someone else back in hopes that they can change what I can't. Which is where we come in. Shoyuta responds. So then why wait until there's only 11 of us left? Short answer? I was looking for Deku. Kazu says. Me? Why? Izuku asks, and Shoyuta almost wants to laugh. This kid is joking, right? Isn't it obvious? Every single timeline, no matter what I change, Deku is the key player. Kazu explains, pausing a moment to gather his words before speaking again. If this were chess, you would be the king and queen pieces. Take out the king, game over. But the queen is the strongest piece on the board, able to move in every direction the other pieces can. That would be you. What's so special about me? Just because I have one for all. Actually no. Kazu responds, and Shoyuta can't help but become curious. The second time I jumped, I accidentally interfered in the sludge villain incident, and now that I know about one for all, I understand why such a minor incident changed so much of the timeline. In that jump, Deku never had the awe-inspiring quirk I could remember him having. But he was still a key player, he was just a lot easier to kill. I didn't even stick around for the aftermath when you died, I just automatically jumped. Wait, so I still become a hero without one for all? Izuku says, eyes wide and hopeful and misty with unshed tears, and Shoyuta wants so badly to wrap the kid up and never let go. He knew Izuku never believed him when he said that a quirk doesn't make a hero. Kazu hums, tilting his head from side to side. Not quite. It's like you skipped the step of becoming a hero student and went right to being a war commander. 1 second, Deku doesn't exist. The next second, Nezu is killed, society almost breaks apart, and bam. Some random quirkless kid was leading the war effort like he was always there. Always knew you were a force to be reckoned with, whether you had one for all or not. Hitoshi says. Izuku startles with a squeak, and Shoyuta actually does chuckle this time. Not to say I told you so, but I told you so. Shoyuta says. Izuku flushes red in embarrassment, and Shoyuta turns to Kazu. So basically, this time you decided to send Deku back instead of yourself because he's the key to success. Got it in one. Shoyuta shakes his head, hiding his smile in his ratty old capture scarf. He can't help the rush of pride filling his chest at the information. He knew from day one that Izuku was going to be great. Thank you. Izuku whispers after the group descends into silence. Well then, since everything is sorted out, should we go ahead and do this now? Momo asks. I'm ready when you dash. Kazu never finishes his sentence, because right then, the world explodes into chaos. Shigaraki has found them. Nito is the first to react, shoving Shoyuta towards Izuku, Kazu, and Hitoshi. He raises his voice, despite the excruciating pain that spasms through his throat. Go! We'll hold them back. I can dash, Izuku starts to say, but Nito cuts him off. We don't have time. Go! Nito doesn't wait for a response, already moving towards the horde of Nomu heading in their direction. Spitting out blood from the reopened scar, he takes a deep breath, and he uses voice to scream. Yihia Aizawa. The force of mixed quirk blasts Nomu back enough to give him some breathing room. The commission, before it was torn apart by the enemy, had taken and broken many of the rebellion's heavy hitters. For Nito, they tried to make him into another all-for-one, taking copy and breaking it. They had tried to make it into permanent copy, so that he can use any quirk he copies without a time limit. And in a way, they succeeded. But because they broke his quirk, his body no longer adapts to hold the quirk he copies like it used to. Using any quirk now gives him the quirk backlash the original owner experiences, except tenfold. Voice tears his throat apart and bursts his eardrums. Erasure makes him slowly go blind. Explosion breaks his wrists and bursts his eardrums. Half hot, half cold will give him frostbite, hyperthermia, hypothermia, heatstroke, all of it, and within a few uses. He can even copy one for all, even if using it will kill him. But he doesn't plan to survive this fight, so he doesn't care. Snapping his eyes open, he uses erasure to cancel the quirks of a group of villains, shooting both ice and fire out of their respective sides before using one for all to surge forward at the group. They see him coming and attempt to separate, but Nito doesn't give them the chance. Using explosion, he blasts them apart and himself back simultaneously. As he soars through the air, Nito tries to see the state of his remaining comrades. Deku, Eraserhead and Mindjack are nowhere to be found. He hopes that means they jumped without him. Nito lands on his feet, gritting his teeth as he finds out the bones in feet are broken from that last move with one for all, his wrist snapped from explosion. Willing himself to keep going, he sends out a stream of fire at the same time as he aims his face to the sky to use voice, blasting a handful of flying Noma backwards. They are all promptly shot down by Snipe. He hears the cackle before anything else. Nito, knowing Mei's mad scientist laugh like the back of his hand, snaps his eyes in her direction. He does it just in time to see a veritable army of Nomu descend on Mei at once, and then all that's left is fire. Mei pulled a Katsuki and suicide-bombed her way out. The blast is big enough that the entire area for 3 blocks is leveled, and Nito is knocked off his feet and onto his back. The breath is knocked out of him, and he wheezes as he tries to get it back. When danger sense tingles in the back of his head, Nito promptly rolls to the side. A flying Nomu hits the ground where he had been, having dive-bombed him, and Nito doesn't even hesitate to send ice shards through it, skewering the beast. He forces down the blurriness and nausea and pain to make himself move again. This is nothing, he tells himself. A few broken bones, burned and frozen skin, that's no big deal. That isn't pain. In quick movements, he uses one for all, explosion, fire, ice and voice. One for all to the left, explosion to right simultaneously. The moment those two are done, he shifts his feet and uses Shudo's quirk to take out the other 2/4 of the battlefield, and voice to take out the enemies in the sky. This sequence of quirks make his body tremble from all of the different pain. This isn't pain. Nito thinks, gritting his teeth to do it again. Pain is watching your friends die before your eyes. His eyes lock onto Momo in the distance, out of his range, lying motionless on a pile of Nomu. She's so thin he doesn't even know if there are any lipids left in her frail body. He hopes she gets to see Kyuka again. Pain is watching your friends suffer. Nito doesn't bother with that same all-out attack. The Nomu adapted too quickly and most of them dodged the attacks. His eyes are constantly roaming, searching for his remaining allies. Ectoplasm is still going strong. He had gathered all of his clones to form his giant form, and he's rampaging across the battlefield. Crushing Nomu in his grip, stomping on them, throwing them around. Snipe is nowhere to be found, but if Nito strains his bursted ears, he still hears gunshots. Ectoplasm spots him in the center of the fray, and scoops him up with one hand. Having the chance to breathe may be harmful in the long run since it'll let the adrenaline keeping him awake fade, but he has to take it anyway. He uses the opportunity of a better vantage point to survey the war zone they've walked into. He can see Kazu cornered by a few lowlifes as he's killed, but he grins victoriously as he goes. Nito will take it to mean the other three did make the jump. Pain is knowing that you can't change the hand that fate has dealt you. The gunshots stop ringing at the same time a building collapses with a Nomu taking it down. Nito doesn't even have to guess. Snipe's gone. He went out doing what he's always done, being a hero. They all have, even Kazu. And Nito wants that. He wants to go out in a blaze of glory. He wants to see fear in his enemy's eyes as he goes. He wants to take out Shigaraki. Renewed with determination, Nito forces his vision to focus with the use of One for All. Shigaraki likes the chaos of battle. He likes watching his enemies flounder and fail to survive. And with as many Nomu as there are right now, they need someone to control them. So Shigaraki will likely be close, but on the sidelines. Somewhere he feels powerful. Somewhere he can see everything. Blue hair, that rotten BSTRD. Shigaraki, standing tall and unbothered by the death of his Nomu, is standing on top of a pile of them. A pile at which Momo created. A pile she died on. He is standing on her. How dare he treat her like trash? How dare he make a mockery of her final breaths? Standing on top of her like she's dirt, like she didn't mean anything to anyone. Momo is a warrior, a goddess among men, a ray of love in a world full of hate, and he dares to defile her lifeless body? Physical pain fades, but grief never dies. Forcing himself to his feet, and without a moment of delay, Nito rockets into the air. Float, One for All, and explosions send him soaring into the sky. Higher, higher than he's ever been. So high he can't choke down any oxygen through his battered throat, because there isn't hardly any around him. When he can't make himself go higher, he spins to face the ground. Using Black Whip is strangely easy for a quirk that would never activate for him. Izuku had told him that Black Whip was semi-sentient and that it feeds off of anger. Nito has plenty of that right now. The tendrils rocket towards the earth, stretching and stretching until it feels like it'll snap. Nito only allows himself to fall a few feet, and that's all he needed to pierce the ground beside the pile of Nomu Shigaraki stands on. With a scream of rage but not a voice, Nito reels himself in like a rubber band snapping shut. Explosion gives him a boost, One for All numbs the pain. Fire flares out from his left side like a wing of red and orange and blue, ice shards trailing through. The air behind him. His eyes lock onto Shigaraki, and a moment later their eyes meet. Nito activates Erasure, the base power of One for All giving the quirk the ability to see other quirks' cores. He'll make an impact in about 3 seconds, give or take. Nito finds the core of All for One, and then cuts the strings connecting it to the host. It's strangely beautiful to look at, the cores of quirks dotting his vision like miniature stars. Izuku would have loved to see this. Nito looks at Momo's lifeless eyes, looking up at him blankly. Still underfoot. Still inciting rage in his heart. In his eyes, Momo is far more beautiful than the paltry show the quirk cores put on. He'd say the same of Mei if she hadn't blown herself up. Time seems to slow as he runs the faces of all those he's lost through his mind. Kendo, Tetsu, Vlad Sensei. Nezu, Ms. Joke, Midnight, Present Mike, Ketsuki, Shudo, Denki. Every single person they've lost in this godforsaken war runs across his mind's eye. Some of them he doesn't even know the names of. He hopes Aijiro, wherever he is with Katsuki again, and Hanta has found peace. They aren't anywhere he can see, and he lost track of them the moment the battle began. He holds no hope that they're alive, he knows better by now. But the world explodes around him in a blaze of fire, ice, and noise. Minoma Nito, the Phantom Thief, has done the impossible and eliminated not only the leader of villains, but also a huge chunk of if not all of the Nomu army. Perhaps, if the whole time travel thing weren't possible, this day would be remembered as the last stand. This place, which happens to be Mizudafu, because of course it is, would be known as the Phantom Fields. Nito would go down in history as the man who ended the end. But this isn't that story, and a new war rages on without him. Shinso Hitoshi wakes up silently, stomach rolling harshly. The room he's in is dark, with no window, clock or light to guide him. He knows without even moving that a muzzle is on his face. Only 2 foster homes never used the muzzle. One turned into a real family with a little sister and 2 dads. The other never got the chance since his quirk had yet to come in before they shipped him off somewhere else. He takes a few minutes to himself, letting his head stop spinning like a top. When he feels like going back to sleep, he sits up slowly instead so he doesn't end up throwing up from the movement. That would be made even worse because of the muzzle. Running his hand lightly over the floor, he tries to find something to pick a lock with. After finding a paperclip and getting rid of the muzzle, he picks the lock to the door and slips out with his backpack. He needs to know if this is the foster home he thinks it is. If the jump worked like it should have, then he should be in the foster home when he was 12 years old. If his memory serves him right, and Hitoshi remembers everything about his foster homes, then this should be that rich couple. They had fostered him to gain sympathy points at their respective workplaces. They kept him well fed, and they never cared where he went or what he did so long as he was home by dark. During work dinners, he was allowed to talk, but never to ask questions. He learned not to test that rule only once, when they whipped him for daring to ask questions. They were, in his opinion, the best foster family he'd had, until he was adopted, that is. Hitoshi moves on silent feet to the living room. They should have, right there, an obnoxious baby grand piano that is bright fing pink. Neither of the couple knew how to play. They forced him to learn so he could entertain their guests. He's pretty sure he wasn't the first or last either. God, he hates the piano. When they were forcing him to learn, he wasn't allowed to stop playing for anything. Restroom, food, sleep. If he missed more than 3 notes each song, the foster father would whack his hands. He looked like he killed someone with his fists for 2 months straight. Hitoshi turns around to head upstairs. They keep their safe in the bedroom, and that's where they keep their money, so he's going to take as much of it as possible. He sticks close to walls to better avoid the creaky floorboards, and slips inside the bedroom without much trouble. Both of the couple, God, he can't remember their names, are sound asleep as he makes his way silently to the safe. It only takes a few minutes to find it, and cracking the code takes only a few more. Swiftly and silently, he empties out the safe full of yen until his bag is half full. Heading back out of the bedroom, he drops by his closet room to grab 3 pairs of clothes, 2 for the backpack, 1 to change into. Both his heavy and light jackets he goes ahead and puts on, strapping on his shoes before heading back out. This time he drops by the kitchen and grabs their sharpest kitchen knife, wraps it in a hand towel for safety and puts it in the side pocket for easy access. He's about to leave the kitchen when the fancy coffee maker catches his eye. God, he hasn't had coffee in over a decade. The smell of brewing coffee might wake the foster family, but it's worth it. He sets the coffee maker to roast the couple's best grinds and grabs 2 fancy thermoses. It takes a few minutes, and it makes his anxiety spike a bit with every groan of the fancy house. He wants to be far away by the time those 2 wake up. The foster father is a giant of a man, and it's not due to any quirk. He's just that effing big, unless his memories are distorted from being a child under their thumb at the time. Either way, Hitoshi is a scrawny twig of a kid. Even if he remembers how to fight, he doesn't have the body or weapons to do so. The moment the coffee is done, he pours it into both thermoses and chugs the little bit left over. He grabs a thick blanket on impulse and then he's out the door and moving, going as fast as he can without attracting too much attention to himself. It's a rich neighborhood, and it's midnight. Any self-respecting hero patrolling at this time would think he's up to no good. While keeping to the shadows, he rolls the blanket up tight and pins it between his back and backpack, using the excess of the straps to tie the backpack down so it doesn't bounce. With Nito having stayed behind to give them time to jump, Hitoshi is the first one back. It was originally Nito's job to secure a base of operations, since he would have had roughly 2 months to find one. Hitoshi only has 2 weeks. For the plan to be as smooth sailing as possible, he needs to have a place secured before Izuku jumps. Once Izuku gets here, they'll have about 4 months to prepare before Dad returns. There's a lot to do in 4 months. While planning, Mei had taken it upon herself to design battle suits that would prepare them for anything, as well as any and all support items, and then gave detailed instructions on how to build everything for Izuku to memorize. She got down to even the color schemes. Hitoshi thinks it was the most content she'd been since Power Loader. So Izuku has to build 3 very complicated, very decked-out suits and support gear. On top of that, there's the computer station. Izuku will be both the man in the chair and a field operative, so he'll need heavy-duty computer systems and somewhere safe to store them so they won't get sold for parts. There's also that fact that both of them will have to start training their bodies immediately since neither of them were very fit before UA. Not to mention the research and recon needed for their first job. Since Eri is probably 3, her quirk hasn't come in yet, which means they have no reliable reason to take her from overhaul yet. As much as it pains him to let it happen, she will have to suffer at least a little bit for them to have reason enough that the heroes won't send her right back in. Which means mission number 1, find Dabi. He's old enough to be on the streets already, but they don't know his exact age. If Shudo were here, he would know. Izuku will probably have a better estimate when he jumps. If the jump has already happened, does that mean they've landed? Either way, Dabi is a small-time criminal until the whole stain thing happened. So if they can save him, that's already a huge blow to the future league. Shigaraki too if they can manage it. This is going to be a long few years. Hitoshi hops on a night train to get out of town. They don't want their base to be too close to any of their old homes. So Mustafu is out, but that's a problem for the morning. Right now, he needs to find somewhere relatively safe to rest. Then he'll run to the store for heavy-calorie snacks and non-perishables. He'll need a healthy weight if he wants to get to be as fit as he was in his prime, before the borders closed and there was still food to be found. Now that he thinks about it, why the hell did he not grab some food from the foster house? Hitoshi sips lightly at the coffee, savoring the flavor of it more than he would have before. The train is pretty much empty, but there's a few people who are probably heading home from the night shifts. He keeps his head down, but his eyes on the people around him. There is a lot of FING yen in his bag right now. Being mugged is the last thing he wants to happen. Finding a safe place to sleep is easy, since he knows all of Dad's safe houses. Hitoshi knows better than to rely on Dad's safe houses the whole time. He doesn't want to interact with Eraserhead until his dad has landed. No, he hates it. He needs a better word for it. Either way, one night shouldn't be too bad. So long as he keeps an ear out for anyone approaching, he can get out the back door silently with no one the wiser. With a roof over his head, and 2 big thermoses of coffee in hand, he's ready to pull an all-night. Hitoshi, as he settles into the corner closest to the back exit of the little hidey-hole room under a bridge, wonders idly at the mission looming before him. It'll be hard as F to manage to wipe out everyone who contributed to the end with only 3 people. Not to mention, they'll need to keep their heads down and noses clean to keep off of all for one's radar. He's by far the biggest threat right now. The main people they need to focus on first will be the Todoroki family, Shigaraki, and maybe Kurogiri. That's depending on if they can break all for one's hold on him and bring back Oboro. Todoroki Toya is the main concern, but in order to help Dabi, they need to help Shudo. And to do that, they need to take down Endeavor. The Todoroki scandal was the beginning of the Commission's attempts to take control. When the public lost faith in heroes because of Endeavor, they tried to biologically re-engineer some of the strongest heroes in training. That's how Shudo died. They played around in his quirk factor a bit too much, and by the time the rescue squad reached them, Shudo had already fried to a crisp on one side and froze solid on the other, but on the sides that they didn't belong. They tried to combine the 2 separate quirk factors of fire and ice so he could use them both on both sides. It's also how they broke Nido's quirk. If they can manage to expose Endeavor early, it might allow the public a chance to move on before All Mights fall from power. Risky, but necessary. After that, it'll likely be Hawks next, to start the Commission's reform before they have a chance to assume total control. God, and that's only the start. So much to do and not enough time. Hitoshi wishes he wasn't 12 years old, because he could really go for a shot of vodka right about now. Midoriya Izuku wakes up choking back a scream and a sob. He presses his hands to his face tightly, trying to muffle the sounds of his own ragged breath. He doesn't want to wake up his mother, He couldn't handle that right now. He can't let her see him like this, and he can't see her or he'll break down. Taking long, slow, deep breaths around his fingers, he calms himself down as much as possible. The rolling in his stomach is not as bad as it could have been, and he's used to pain, so he forces himself to sit up. This is no time to have a breakdown. Despite knowing in his heart that all the rest of his family are dead, he refuses to break down. They won't be able to go back to the future, since if this plan works like it should, their future will be gone in all but memory. The last 3 survivors. Izuku doesn't have time to break, there's too much to be done. First things first? He needs a notebook. Izuku crawls out of bed silently, going to his desk to grab a fresh notebook and a pen. He writes furiously by the light of the moon and his phone. He doesn't want to turn on his lamp in case his mother wakes up in the middle of the night. Belatedly, Izuku pauses in his writing to check the date, just to be sure he really is 12 years old. He makes sure to write down everything he can remember. Admittedly, it's a lot. Enough to fill 2 whole notebooks, one for the plan and targets, the other just for Mei's extensive explanation on how to build the suits to her exact specifications. He wonders if he should feel offended. He may not be good at the whole inventing part of the process, but he sure as hell can build something. He's not exactly incompetent. Nezu made sure Izuku had extensive knowledge on everything and anything. He knows how to build a bomb out of household items, how to hack into highly secure networks with only a phone. He knows heroic law so well he could probably take the bar exam in over 12 different countries and pass with flying colors. Izuku can perform surgery, albeit nothing very clean and clinical. Recovery Girl taught him that. He can recite from memory Nezu's backup plan to take over the world if he gets bored or annoyed with the commission. Not that he ever got the chance to test it because of Hawks. The list goes on. The moment the last word is put down on paper, Izuku checks his email. They had come up with a code to let each other know that their jump was successful. Hitoshi should have emailed him by now. There it is too, at the top of his multitude of emails. From Iras3rfan21@yahoo.com to SMA11M1GHT001@yahoo.com 1217131SE. Really? That's his email address? Izuku can't really judge though, given his own. Wow, he was a cringy kid. The numbers may not mean anything to Hitoshi and Shoyuta, but they mean something to him. 12 rebels, including Kazu. 1 support engineer. 7 hero students. 1 civilian. 3 veteran heroes. 1 second chance. 1217131SC. Izuku responds with the same sequence. He wanted the numbers to appear random to anyone who might find them, given he knows for a fact that Nezu will end up searching Shuta's email when he goes missing, but he wanted them to mean something to them. If Hitoshi or Shoyuta asks, he'll tell them, but otherwise, it's just a code. It also gives him the chance to have something to send with Eri, and maybe others when they save them. It might not have been brought up during the planning process, but Izuku already knows where a few of the people they'll save will go. Eri to Hizashi, Toga to Vlad King. Shigaraki to either Gran Torino or All Might, depending on how bad Shigaraki's brainwashed hatred of All Might extends. Spinner to Recovery Girl. They had discovered pretty easily that Spinner turned villain because he was barred from getting a medical license due to his appearance. Dabi will likely go to Tsukachi, or perhaps even Izuku's own mother. By having this code be known to Nezu as being related to Shoyuta, he can send notes with each of the ones to be saved that'll basically say contact Principal Nezu, UA High School. 1217131SC. Or something like that anyways. Izuku finally gets the message back from Hitoshi that only says train station. It doesn't specify which one, but Izuku already knows. He means the station closest to UA. He doesn't bother responding, grabbing his backpack and emptying it out. In it he places in a few pairs of clothes to wear, a few of the essentials like toothbrush and toothpaste, and his spare pair of red shoes. He also puts 3 fresh notebooks, a pack of unopened pens, the notebooks with his plans, and a single All Might figurine. It's the oldest one he has, a toy he got when he was kid. Looking around the dark room, he tries to think of what else he'll need to bring with him. Hitoshi will have a base figured out by now, or he should. Izuku knows he was working with a lot less time than planned with Nito among them, but Hitoshi is crafty. He'll have figured something out. Twisting his lips as he thinks, he goes ahead and slips on both his lightest and heaviest jackets, tying his shoes. Is there anything else he can take that will be essential? He's got clothes and toiletries, he's got spare underwear, spare shoes, notebooks and pens. Most of the parts for the gear they'll need Izuku can scavenge, steal, or buy. There's not much else he needs to take. Izuku slips the backpack on and goes to leave, but pauses before he reaches the door. He doesn't want to just disappear like this, it'll break his mother's heart. Maybe he should leave a note? Yeah, he'll leave a note. Turning back to his desk, he grabs his latest hero analysis for the future volume, number 10. Smoothing it open to the first empty page, he sits down and writes his note. Dear Mom, it isn't easy to do this, but I left. I know it'll be hard to understand why today of all days, but it's something I must do. You have been there for me my entire life, keeping me safe, keeping me happy. You are the only thing I lived for so long, but it's my turn now. It's my turn to protect you. I'll come home, eventually, and when I do I might not be the same me that you remember, but it was all for you. Always for you. Know that no matter how long I'm gone, or what others try to tell you, I love you. I love you so much it hurts sometimes. Wait for me? I know it's a cruel thing to ask of you, after leaving so abruptly, but I can't help but do so anyway. I love you. Love, your baby boy, Izuku. 1217131SE. Izuku goes to leave it at that, but he freezes before he even puts down his pen. P.S. Tell Kaken it isn't his fault and that he'll always be my image of victory. Satisfied, despite the pain in his chest not due to old battle wounds, he opens his bedroom door and sneaks out of the apartment. He makes quick work of heading to the train station to meet Hitoshi, but he slows down when he passes Kaken's house. He allows himself a moment to stare at the front door. He lets himself reminisce of the good times for only a moment, before he turns away and heads to the train station. Hitoshi spots the head of unruly green hair before Izuku spots him. Pushing off the wall, he makes his way up behind Izuku silently. He gets all the way to a foot behind him as Izuku continues to walk around the relatively empty train station. Reaching forward, he taps Izuku's shoulder, only to have his wrist snatched before he can do anything else. Izuku glances behind him at Hitoshi wearily as he twists Hitoshi's wrist slightly. Hitoshi only reacts with a smirk. Seriously, Toshi? Hitoshi shrugs, still smirking as his wrist is given back to him. What can I say? I live to make you miserable. Izuku rolls his eyes, but Hitoshi can see a little smile peeking through. He'll consider that an accomplishment. The train ride from Mustafu is long and quiet, and Izuku falls asleep on his shoulder. He may not look like the scarred, war-torn, starving man he was before the jump, but he still has the eyes of him. World-weary and red-rimmed. Hitoshi hasn't actually seen Izuku cry for over a decade, only ever the aftermath. Dad's the one who Izuku could be weak in front of. Not for the first time, Hitoshi wishes he was given the honor of being there in Izuku's worst moments. He always keeps, or perhaps kept, since they're no longer in the middle of an apocalypse, a strong visage about him around the others. Especially Momo. After losing Kyuka in arguably one of the worst ways possible, she was too fragile of heart to be much of a hero. Kyuka's loss broke Momo, like Powerloader's death broke Mei. Izuku never got the chance to grieve for Shudo or Katsuki or anyone else, too busy leading a war effort. Hitoshi wonders if he ever let the wound close, or if it still bleeds sluggishly underneath the band-aid he slapped on it. The rest of them did. The rest of the remaining rebels, remaining heroes, all were given a chance to mourn and move on in their own time. Even so, some wounds never heal. Hitoshi wouldn't have kept going if not for Dad. Denki was Hitoshi's first big loss. It was early on in the war, right after the hero schools were systematically destroyed one by one, forcing students like them to go on the run and fight in a war they never should have been in. They never even got the chance to go on a real date. Stolen kisses in between battles. Promises to stay alive. Holding each other close on cold nights and telling stories of what they'll do after the war. That was all Hitoshi got. Denki broke his promise. Then it was Pops. In the rescue mission for those taken by the commission, Pops died giving the ones who were taken a chance to get away. Nito had copied voice before the fact, and after Pops fell, had his throat crushed by a Nomu. That whole battle was nothing more than a massacre. A three-way fight between the heroes, the commission, and the League. He still has nightmares of the slaughter that happened that day. Then it was little Eri. None of them, the last 11, ever knew what happened to her. All they knew was that Eri was stationed at the last remaining stronghold, caring for the injured as they came in droves. Centuries ago, an aid station was a taboo target. You strike an aid station and your own gets attacked right back, eye for an eye style. Not this time. The only reason they know the last stronghold fell is because when they went to try and get supplies, the entire city was leveled. No survivors that they could find. They never found Eri's body. For months, in the back of Hitoshi's mind, he wondered if his little sister would be the next Nomu they fought. Hitoshi snaps out of his melancholic thoughts as the train comes to a slow halt. Shaking Izuku awake, they head to the base. Finding it was hell. Sure, there's plenty of abandoned buildings across the country. But finding one that was easily defensible, unlikely to be found by heroes or villains alike, and still having running water and electricity is another thing altogether. The one he found was once an underground and above-ground parking garage. The top of the garage collapsed during a villain fight, presumably anyways, and it seems no one ever bothered trying to rebuild it. The underground part was buried, but after digging and maneuvering some debris around, he had a relatively concealed entrance. Since it's connected to city power lines, it still has power. No shower, though there are bathrooms at least. No matter, there's an abandoned apartment building a block down the road that gets water, so they can go there for a shower. If he's reading the graffiti right, it's basically all access to the homeless population. He hasn't run into any problems with it at least. There were other people around, using the rundown apartments as their places to sleep, but there's a single apartment that is all access. So long as you only use that one, and don't venture into other homeless people's claimed territories, there's no problems to be had. Izuku is quiet the entire time Hitoshi explains all of this, but there's something calculating in his eyes. Hitoshi bets he's already planning out how to get all of the parts they need for the suits, support items, and computer setup. Hitoshi waits patiently as Izuku looks around the underground parking garage. It's not too much to look at. Some of the topside rubble had collapsed along the outer edges of the entire garage, but luckily the center pillars were still standing steady, so the center of the large underground space is largely untouched. If Hitoshi were to guess, whatever happened to the garage happened in the center, at least a floor off of ground level and going outwards. Which is why most of the underground part is untouched in the center. As far as he could figure out, there's 1 or 2 stories below them, but he hasn't had time to clear the rubble enough to access them all. This is perfect, Hitoshi. Izuku says suddenly, still looking at the room with appraising eyes. Hitoshi absolutely does not puff his chest out in pride a little. 2 weeks was an awfully short time, but he still managed it with flying colors. I already know where some things will be set up. Izuku then starts a mumble fest, pointing out where he wants to put things and what things to put. Apparently, he's planning to place a large sparring circle in the center of the room and a workout area with weights and things in one part of the room to the left. A setup of aerial silks, to help with familiarizing themselves with the movements of the modified capture weapons. Along the farthest wall, that's where Izuku will set up his computer and hacking station. I want to have a few filing cabinets, to store all the files that aren't immediately needed. Oh, and we'll need a few beds, over in this corner, yes, closest to the exit. Izuku keeps rambling. Hitoshi just leans against a pillar and watches in amusement. It's like Izuku is trying to turn this crappy, crumbling, underground garage into a mockery of hero agency. Actually, now that he thinks about it, he probably is. Should he tell Izuku to tone it down a bit? Maybe. Is he going to? Fat FING chance. If decking this place out is what makes Izuku happy, then by God, that's what they're gonna FING do. It's been a while since he's seen his fearless leader be so talkative. He's usually quiet and introspective, and has been for a long time. Even during those long days and nights of planning, he didn't talk so freely and certainly not with so much excitement. If Hitoshi weren't still in love with Denki all these years later, he thinks he could definitely fall for this cute green-haired genius. And maybe a sort of lounge area? It doesn't have to be fancy, just somewhere we can relax in between saving the world. And he's still FNG going. God, Hitoshi almost forgot how much this guy can talk. Is he even breathing while he speaks? Maybe that was his original quirk, the ability to not need to breathe as long as he's running his mouth. I'll need a workstation too, for making and repairing the suits and support items. And Izuku suddenly gasps and rounds on Hitoshi, startling him a bit as Izuku suddenly gets in his face. Can we steal a few motorcycles? Hitoshi, not the first nor the last time, has no idea how to respond for a moment. You are way too excited about the idea of stealing Zuku. Hitoshi says blandly, neither agreeing or disagreeing with the notion. He'll leave that problem for Dad. Izuku pouts at him. I've always wanted a motorcycle though. Was gonna get one when I became a hero, but that was before One for All, and frankly with One for All, I'm faster than a motorcycle. Izuku says. Hitoshi opens his mouth to respond, but Izuku has already moved away, already moving back into his plans for their base. Hitoshi shakes his head with a smile and decides to leave him to it while he sets Izuku up to sleep tonight. In the 2 weeks of waiting, Hitoshi has managed to buy a pile's worth of non-perishable food, 2 sleeping bags, a few extra blankets, and burner phones. If Hitoshi knows Izuku at all, and he knows him fairly FING well by now, he'll probably end up revamping the burner phones to be far more high-tech. Whatever, let Zuku have his fun. When Dad gets back, the real work will begin, so might as well make use of what time they have right now. Wait! Izuku suddenly says, turning to Hitoshi with narrowed eyes. He raises an eyebrow as he continues to spread out Izuku's sleeping bag. How much money did you steal from your foster family? Hitoshi grins, grabs his backpack, and holds it open for Izuku to look into. Izuku just kind of stares at the stacks of yen he's not even made a dent in before a sharp smile lights up his face. It's the same smile he wears when he goes to battle. Fierce, feral, a little bit too animalistic to be normal. If you ask him, Izuku got it from Nezu. A little too wide, baring the teeth a little too much, top lip curling back slightly to show his canines. Perhaps if they were a tiny bit sharper, it would be even more threatening than it already is. Oh, this'll do, he says quietly. This'll do very nicely. Izuku may have gone a little overboard. He can't help it though. Ever since he was a kid he's dreamed about opening his own agency. Designing it, running it, hell, he was even dreaming about the paperwork that comes with owning his own agency. Word he knows. Even still, he kind of went over the top. In his defense, all of this will be useful. Within the span of 3 weeks, Izuku has managed to turn the drab underground parking garage into somewhat of his dream agency. A fully decked-out gym area complete with weights, a small but realistic rock climbing wall, a bench press, and yoga mats to use since the floor is still concrete. The gym area is along the left wall about the center of the room, and next to it on the right is 3 sets of aerial silks. Black, purple and green. On the left side of the gym area is Izuku's workstation. A workbench that is basically just a large L-shaped desk, with various heavy-duty tools on or around it. A sewing machine and a welding block to start with. Closest to their hidden entrance, on the right side of the room are 3 sleeping areas. Not beds, areas. They're all sectioned off by dividers with curtains as doors. Each one comes with enough space for a small bedside drawer with a lamp on top, a waist-high bookshelf, a standing mirror, and a makeshift sink. Basically a sink, but instead of plumbing pipes, the used water empties into a bucket that needs to be manually changed. In the farthest corner to the right, a large computer station with 4 computer screens and its own small generator to avoid showing the spike of energy use to officials. Next to it is a small bookshelf and a filing cabinet, as well as one of those collapsible drawer things filled with blank notebooks. Very center of the room there's a large set of mats which he drilled to the floor so they don't move, with a big white circle painted on it. Along the ceiling, strings of fairy lights are used to brighten up the place and make it feel homier. There's also a lounge area along the back wall beside the computer station, complete with a couch, coffee table, and TV. Izuku also put in a makeshift kitchen area, with bookshelves for the storage instead of cabinets, a desk instead of a countertop, another makeshift sink, and 2 mini fridges. When everything is done, set up, and ready for use, Izuku looks at Hitoshi with tears in his eyes. "Thank you, Toshi, thank you for letting me have this." Izuku whispers. Hitoshi only smiles at him softly. "If this is what makes you happy, then no problem." Hitoshi rubs his neck sheepishly as he looks away. "It does make me feel better that we mostly scavenged half the stuff from Dagoba and abandoned buildings though. Plus it helped get us started on strength training." Izuku adds in helpfully. His arms still ache from lugging all of the big items from Mustafu, and then getting them into the base? God, that was terrible. He forgot how much his body hurt while preparing for One for All so many years ago. Now that it's all set up, we need to make a schedule for our preparations until Shoyuta shows up. Hitoshi groans low in his throat. God, just call him Dad already. Izuku's face lights on fire as he splutters indignantly before deciding to just ignore that comment. "Come on, let's sit on the couch while we work up a schedule." Izuku makes a detour to grab a fresh notebook from the computer station and a pen before collapsing into Hitoshi's side on the couch. Propping the notebook up on his knees, Izuku labels the book as simply Preparations. He flips it to the first page so he can start off with a bulleted list. The pages aren't numbered, so he goes ahead and numbers each page back and front in the outer corners up to 50, that way they can keep the notebook organized. Hisashi taught him that. So, to begin, we need a list of everything that we need to do before Shoyuta jumps, simplified into a few words. Izuku starts. He goes ahead and labels the first 4 bulleted points as Hitoshi's workout plan, Hitoshi's meal plan, Izuku's workout plan, and Izuku's meal plan. Hitoshi, reading over his shoulder, makes a noise that draws his attention. Do we really need to separate our meal plans and workout plans? Wouldn't it be simpler to just do one workout and meal plan? Hitoshi asks. Izuku is already shaking his head before Hitoshi finishes the question. We have very different bodies, which have different needs. It's better to plan out different ones for each of us so it's better tailored to our specific requirements. Izuku explains. For example, the biggest difference, your workout plan will have to include quirk training. Since it'll be years yet if and when I get One for All, I don't have to worry quite as much about it. Hitoshi nods. Makes sense. The next bullet point will have to be either the suits or support items. Izuku writes down those in the next 2 bullet points. We also need to make sure our combat skills stay sharp, but sparring against each other too much will lead to developing weird habits. There's always gyms. Hitoshi says. Izuku hums in thought for a moment, contemplating the pros and cons in his head, before refusing. No, we don't want to have to explain why we're already so skilled. And besides, gym memberships lead to paper trails, and people knowing our faces. We are technically runaways right now, and I don't want to give my mother a chance to find me. Izuku says, even as pain flares up in his heart at the mere thought of pushing his mother away so callously. It's needed, but that makes it no less painful to do. Well, we're already planning on being sort of vigilantes, why not go ahead and start doing so now? Izuku goes to reject, but Hitoshi continues before he gets the chance. Think about it. Being your everyday type of vigilante now gives us a chance to keep our skills sharp, identities hidden, let us get out of this garage so we don't go mad, and we can use it as another form of information gathering. Plus, if we get our names out as vigilantes sooner, instead of all 3 of us at once, it won't be as strange to anyone assigned to our cases. Like, I go out first, get my name out a little, then you, then Dad, and it'll be more like I'm just picking up strays instead of an organized group. I hate that you make so many good points. Izuku grumbles after a moment of consideration. Okay, fine. He says, marking down vigilante work on the next bullet point. Got any ideas for what else absolutely needs to be done that can't wait until Dad gets here? Hitoshi asks. Izuku considers the short list already down. Both workout plans, both meal plans, suit and support item construction, and vigilante work. I can go ahead and start building my information network now as a hacker. Put it down then. Izuku does so obediently, and then taps his pen against his chin. Suddenly a thought races across his mind. Wait, if we're going to go ahead and start getting our names out there as vigilantes, what will our names be? Hitoshi kind of just stares for a moment but groaning and sliding lower on the couch. This is figuring out hero names all over again. He complains. Hitoshi's head lolls to the side so it's in Izuku's lap, covering his notebook. Izuku can't help the exasperated amusement that fills him. You didn't even pick your name out, Denki did. Hitoshi only groans louder and lets his full weight crush Izuku's legs. Izuku hums out lazily. Like father, like son as they say. Izuku has to lean sharply to the side to avoid Hitoshi hitting him with a flailing hand. I don't even know what my name would be. We can't have it related to our quirks to both minimize connections to our old lives and keep our quirks as wild cards. Hitoshi whines. Izuku hums in agreement. I could list out themes and you shoot them down to help narrow our thought process? Hitoshi huffs and sits up. Sure, go for it. Mythology, like Greek or Roman or one of the other million ancient religions' gods? No, because if we get into that you won't shut up for days, and also, it's a little cliché. Hitoshi responds immediately. Izuku grumbles, he liked that idea though. Okay fine. How about important numbers to us? Like I could be 9, as in the 9th holder of one for all. Hitoshi shakes his head. That'll bring too much attention from all for one. No dice. Something related to shadows? Lame. Hitoshi drawls, dragging the word out a moment. Izuku pouts at him. Nicknames that are important to us from our past lives? Connections to our past future? Is a bad idea all around. Hitoshi says with a raised eyebrow. Okay fine, let's speed round it. Izuku offers. I say something and all you say is yes or no. Hitoshi shrugs. Hit me. Colors. Hitoshi says no. Gems. Hitoshi says no. Old cartoon characters. Hitoshi actually laughs at him. Alcohol brands. Hitoshi, thankfully because Izuku only said that to say it, says no with a snort. Nature-based things. Another no. Something Fumikage would say. Hitoshi hesitates, but eventually decides to say no. Card suits. Hitoshi pauses, considers it, and then shakes his head. Izuku is getting frustrated. Why is he making this so difficult? Oh come on. I like that last one. We could use playing cards as calling cards. Do you want to mass buy a bunch of card decks? Hitoshi fires back, and Izuku wilts with a mumbled no. Shoyuta would be so disappointed to learn where all their yen was going towards when he jumps. Why not choose something that has meaning to us and us alone? Like what? Izuku asks. Hitoshi blows out a breath. I don't know. Something that would mean something to us alone, but wouldn't be easily connected to us from before or after our disappearances. Plus we have to keep it open-ended so Dad can choose his own name. I'm drawing a blank on what we could use. Izuku admits. Oh come on Zuku, you chose your hero name before, why is this so hard for you? Hitoshi laments. Izuku gives him a blank look. Hitoshi, my hero name was the nickname Kaken called me to make fun of me for being quirkless, and I just reclaimed it. You and Shoyuta both just used the first name your crushes suggested. None of us ever actually put deep thought into our hero names before. Izuku says. Hitoshi looks at him for a moment before just collapsing backwards onto the other end of the couch, sprawling out haphazardly and refusing to get up when Izuku nudges him. Where's Nito when you need him? He's done this before. Izuku snorts. Nito stole his hero name from an old play or whatever. The Phantom of the Opera? Yeah, he stole it. Momo then. Shortened and cutesified her quirk name. Hitoshi raises his head with a desperate look on his face. Shudo? Katsuki? Effendi Tenya? Went with his first name and never changed his mind. Tried to call himself Lord Explosion Murder the first try, and Igenium was inherited from his brother. Izuku explains, watching with amusement as Hitoshi flounders. Tsu. He whispers quietly. She's one of the only ones who actually had a name picked out since childhood and kept it. Ochako Mina, Denki? First name plus gravity equals Uravity, tried Alien Queen but got shot down and went with Pinky, and Charger plus Lightning Bolt equals Charge Bolt. Our friends were, largely, uncreative. Izuku snickers, taking pleasure in Hitoshi's long-suffering deciding to draw out his pain a little, he goes down the list of the rest of his old classmates. There was Tailman and Invisible Girl. Tokoyami actually went with a god of death as Tsukuyami, so that was cool, if slightly unoriginal. Red Riot as in Crimson Riot. Kaken eventually decided with Great Explosion Murder God Dynamite. Kyuka went with Earphone Jack, as in her quirk name. Anima, as in animal, again, relating to Koji's quirk. Please stop. Yuga chose Can't Stop Twinkling, but it was originally I Cannot Stop Twinkling. A whole but sentence, why not? Please stop. I forgot how bad everyone's hero names were. Hitoshi says weakly. Says you mind Jack? Izuku fires back. Mineta went with grape juice before he was kicked out. Tentacle. Sugar Man for Rikido. Cellophane was decent at least. My god, I hate this. Can we just leave the naming to the cops then? Do you want to leave it to the cops and press? Izuku asks, slightly curious if he'll say yes just to avoid doing it himself. No, Hitoshi sighs out. Then get the hell up and help me figure this out. Izuku demands, patting Hitoshi's leg. Come on, the sooner we figure this out, the sooner we can get to work. I hate you. Love you too, Toshi. 1 month, a sheet ton of sweat and aches and exhaustion, and many nights of no sleep, and Hitoshi is ready to hit the streets at last. He's bulked up considerably, at least compared to when he first woke up. He really needs a better name for the aftermath of the jump, because this is ridiculous. He can at least be in constant exertion for hours at a time without stopping, so there's that. Hitoshi can't wait to finally get out of this garage. He feels like he's going insane. All he's done since they finished fleshing out the preparations notebook is work out, sleep, and go get food, with the occasional quirk training peppered in. Mostly, for his quirk training, he would just practice holding the string without pulling it taut or letting it go. Other training for his quirk is rapid control and release, or fighting against someone trying to break free. Without one for all, it's a hell of a lot easier keeping Izuku under, but that doesn't mean it's easy overall. But finally, Izuku has finished Hitoshi's suit. The anticipation is worse than actual torture, especially since Izuku's moved his workstation to the second floor and forbidden Hitoshi to come down. Said it was a surprise, and that he has to wait. But it's done. All he has to wait for now is for Izuku to bring it upstairs to the main area and let him try it on. Zuku. Hitoshi hollers down the hallway driveway thing since he's still not allowed to go down there. Hurry you up. Hold your horses. Izuku yells back up at him, and finally he rounds the bend where Hitoshi can see him, holding a box that most surely has his outfit. He's so excited he can feel his vocal cords vibrating without making noise. If I had a horse I still wouldn't hold it. Hitoshi yells back at him, being extra loud just to make Izuku glare at him as he comes within capture scarf distance. Hitoshi trails behind Izuku closely as they go further into the main area, where there's plenty of space. He barely holds himself back from pouncing on the box when Izuku sets it down. Izuku huffs, turns to him and crosses his arms. Alright Strip, I'll give you it piece by piece so I can explain what you need to know as we go. Izuku commands, and Hitoshi is already ripping his shirt off before he finishes. After years of living in close quarters with the last 11 with no space for privacy, he doesn't feel self-conscious to be mostly naked in front of anyone anymore. Izuku's seen the scars he has now, as well as all of the scars he's gained over the years so many times, it's like there's no scars in the first place. He doesn't even care about the whip scars along his back anymore. To Hitoshi, his scars are marks of honor. Proof that he survived, that he endured, and that he still showed everyone who ever doubted him that they're wrong, and that he can be a hero. He's just throwing his jeans to the side when Izuku hands him a heavy shirt. While he was undressing down to his boxers, Izuku went to grab one of the standing mirrors. The shirt is black, with strips of dark purple down the sides, fitting close to his body. The shirt is made of slash, fire, and water-resistant fabric, all of it is, and it's double-layered. In between layers are thin metal plates over vital areas, disconnected for ease of movement. Izuku says, on the collarbones you'll notice 2 buttons. They're temperature regulators, one for heating, one for cooling. They coincide with Shudo's original quirk, so to heat your body up, press the left, to cool it down press the right. It happens in 30-minute intervals, and the battery only needs to recharge once every 2 or 3 days, longer if it stays unused. Hitoshi grabs the pants as Izuku hands them to him, slipping them on. The pants, like the shirt, is made of the same resistant material, this time triple layered with 2 separate layers of the metal sheets on your thighs and calves. Izuku hands him 2 white boxes. Those are both full of emergency medical supplies, and the boxes themselves are reinforced steel. They can be used as a blunt force weapon if need be. They go in the 2 pockets on your outer thighs. Nodding to show he's still listening, Hitoshi opens one of the boxes to see heavy-duty medical supplies before closing it and slipping them in the right pockets. The pockets are secured by a buckle, which he tightens to avoid rattling the supplies around as he moves. Down the outer line of his pants is another set of purple stripes, which help make him look taller. Apparently Mei and Izuku went with a theme. With the pants, goes the holster belt and suspender straps to make sure the pants don't slip down. Izuku says, handing him both items which he quickly puts on. Hitoshi doesn't question why the pockets on his calves were glossed over, just deciding to let Izuku do his thing. The front of the hips on the belt are magnetic dagger holsters. The sides of the hips are for throwing knives, also magnetic. Having the holsters be magnetic eliminates the problem of losing knives while jumping around, and the problem of a complicated strap to hold them in. Hitoshi tries to draw one of the daggers, and is surprised by the amount of force he'll have to use to do so. Is it supposed to be that hard to grab? Hitoshi asks. Yes, this way if any villains try to steal a dagger from your belt, they'll be thrown off by the force required to grab it, allowing you to use their distraction to your advantage. Izuku explains, holding out a jacket. He slips it on and zips it up, twisting in the mirror to appreciate its sleek look. It's black, like the shirt, with 2 strips of purple down the sides as well. 2 more strips of purple run down the length of his arms, over his shoulders and up into the collar. Its zipper is on his side instead of down his front, and can zip all the way up his neck if he wants. He leaves it loose and open for the moment. The hood is large and stiff against his back, and when he draws it up, it stays standing, lifted off of his forehead and shadowing his face. The outer seam is purple too, from collar to collar. The jackets, like the pants and shirt, are made of resistant fabric, this one triple layered like the pants with the 2 layers of metal plating. Izuku explains, looking him up and down with a considerating look. He can feel the metal plates most prominently between his shoulder blades and on his lower back. Diamen, this outfit is heavy. It's also reversible. On the end of the sleeve, you'll see a hole. That's where your thumbs go. Grip the holes and slide the jacket off quickly. Hitoshi does as commanded, grinning when it comes off in one smooth motion, held off the floor only by his fists. This side is completely purple, a brighter color than the dark purple of the stripes on the other side. He pulls it on again, and this side has the zipper down the middle like a normal jacket. When he looks in the mirror, it looks like he's wearing a normal hoodie. A hoodie with cat ears. Hell yeah. I wanted the hoodie side to look normal and not sketchy, at least for you and me, so hence the cat ears and bright color. Izuku says, sounding a little bit more smug than he should. It wasn't a part of the design Mei made for us, but at least this way we can quickly switch out the jacket to conceal our identities if the heroes get too close. Turn it back around, I'm not done with it. Feeling distinctly like a mannequin, he does as ordered and puts the jacket back on with the sleek black side out. Right, so underneath your right arm there's a small pocket with a zipper. That's for your primary lockpicking set. Izuku says, handing him a lockpicking set to put in the pocket it belongs to. Also, the hand pockets have a heating feature. Just press the button and it'll warm your hands for 30 minutes. Nice. There's one last part of the jacket, and then we'll move on. On your shoulders, there's another set of magnetic holsters. These are upside down, so you just reach across your body to grab a dagger. I suggest you keep these as a last resort. Izuku says. And now for the boots. Hitoshi takes the pair of socks and boots handed to him, sitting down in front of the mirror to slip them on. The boots are normal combat boots in appearance, but knowing Mei and knowing Izuku, it has some extra goodies hidden by the normal look. The boots have modified soles to soften impact and improve jumping power, as well as reinforced steel on the tips for extra power in your kicks. Izuku continues to explain. You'll notice the space between the pants and the boots. Your left foot has a taser holster, the right the gun holster. Guns are loaded with safety on. Izuku hands him a sleek black taser and a handgun. Both weapons have purple on the grips. Also for the boots, hidden in the soles will be a backup lockpicking set, and a small dagger, left and right accordingly. Hitoshi lifts his feet to see the barest outline of the dagger and lockpicking set in the center of the soles. And last but not least for the outfit part, the gloves. Simple fingerless leather gloves, with cushion and steel over the knuckles. The palm has enhanced grip as well. Izuku says, and Hitoshi slips the gloves on, tightening the buckles, and flexing his hands to test out elasticity. He takes Izuku's offered hand and is hauled to his feet. For support items there's more? We have a modified version of the capture scarf. It goes on your arms. Under the jacket. Izuku hands him a set of gauntlet-looking items, and he slips them on under his jacket sleeves. They're heavy on his arms. God, this whole setup weighs the same amount he does. With a permissive nod from Izuku, he holds an arm out away from them to test it. It takes a moment to get it to work, but when he tilts his wrist down, a black whip-like piece of fabric surges out and wraps around one of the nearby pillars. He giggles giddily, raising his wrist to retract the fabric, sending him launching to and past the pillar. When the fabric retreats back into the gauntlet, he stumbles slightly from the backlash of it. Izuku makes his way over to him, carrying the box with him under one arm. It works just like the capture scarf, using nanotechnology to respond smoothly to its owner. Each set will carry all three of our DNA, that way we can use each other's weapons without difficulty. Izuku says, setting the box back down. The gauntlet itself is reinforced steel, in case you need to tank a hit. Here, this one is next. Izuku hands him a pair of goggles, which he slips over his head, leaving the hair trapped underneath the strap to keep it out of his face. Purple, because of course, gotta keep on theme. The goggles have night vision, heat vision, and for Shoyuda, a mist spray. Resistant to damage, and the lenses are bulletproof glass, so they aren't likely to shatter easily. And finally, these. Izuku hands him a mask that looks a lot like his persona cords. God, he hasn't used persona cords in years, since it was damaged and lost in a battle, and at that point, Momo didn't have enough lipids to spare for a whole new set. Slipping on the mask is like coming home. Even if, in the beginning when he first got them, they felt like another muzzle, something to silence him, his persona cords had saved his life on multiple occasions before they were lost to him. These are an updated version of your old persona cords. Like the original version, these will mimic voices for you, but they also serve as comm links. They'll only connect to paired devices, even with something that'll block electrical signals. Each set is designed with the person in mind though. Izuku explains. Hitoshi fiddles with the settings a moment, and when he speaks, Izuku's voice comes out instead of his own. What will your mask do? All of our masks will silence us to outsiders, but mine will be connected to a backup drive. It'll be designed to record whatever analysis I mumble for later use. Shuda's won't have a specific feature, but his goggles will. Izuku goes on to say, all of our masks will filter out any toxic gases, silence us to outsiders, and have GPS locators built in. When you reverse the jacket, to hide the mask, all you have to do is turn it around. It should be easily hidden in the folds of the hoodie whether your hood is raised or not. This is all wonderfully made, Izuku. Hitoshi praises, moving back to the mirror to see the whole effect. Izuku trails after him with a pleased hum. With the mask and goggles on, hood raised and black fabric hanging lazily to the floor, he looks like a badass. He never wants to take this outfit off. It makes him feel powerful, invincible. Like maybe this endeavor to save the world won't be so hard after all. You look amazing, Toshi. Izuku says. All thanks to you and Mei. Think I could go out tonight and get a real feel for the suit in action? Hitoshi asks, hope and excitement leaking into his voice, which still sounds like Izuku. Izuku purses his lips. Maybe you should practice with the gauntlets first. The fabric is heavier than the normal capture scarf, so you can use it like Midnight's whip, and it's different being yanked around by the arms rather than the body. Izuku says. Hitoshi deflates slightly. 2 hours. If you can get the hang of it within 2 hours, you can go out tonight, and when you get back you can let me know if anything needs adjustments. I only need one. Hitoshi says, determination flooding his veins as he makes his way to the aerial silks. I'll be at the workstation finishing up my own outfit. Come get me before you go so I can be sure you're ready. Izuku hollers at him, already heading downstairs. Hitoshi waves his hand dismissively in response, sending out the gauntlet whips to get himself off the ground. He's gonna master this in no time, and then it's time to hit the streets at last. Shoyuta doesn't get paid enough for this. He's been assigned to the case of 2 new vigilantes, partners, who showed up 2 and 3 months ago. They're slippery, skilled in ways Shoyuta can't comprehend. Fast enough they could both have minor speed enhancement quirks. Smart enough to have intelligence quirks. Skilled enough to be actual heroes. The first one, the one with purple accents on his suit, goes by Silence. Fitting, given he's never heard the vigilante speak in his own voice. Silence's voice always mimics Shuta's own, or Tsukachi, or Hizashi, or Nezu, or random people. Never the same voice twice in one conversation. Then again, for someone calling themselves Silence, he's pretty chatty. He's sarcastic, antagonizing, and he likes to rile Shoyuta up. For an entire month, Shoyuta had worked on building a rapport with this vigilante, trying to get information on the sly. But Silence is clever. He gives Shoyuta vague answers, which answer his question but never gives anything away. Has the height and build of a child, but acts like a mature, seasoned pro. His fights are always over quickly, using whips, or something like them, to take out enemies by using them against each other. He likes to taunt his victims, asking inane questions to confuse and disorient and PSS them off. Things like, nice weather we're having don't you think? Or, did you know that ice is a rock? Or, think your mother will appreciate flowers. Silence is the one that likes to stick around and talk to Shoyuta for a minute before disappearing. Then there's the other one, Secret. Secret came along about a month after Silence, and at first Shoyuta didn't think there was a correlation between the two, given they patrol separately. But then Shoyuta and Silence had been outnumbered and were losing a fight against an entire gang of criminals. Silence, using Shuta's voice, which never fails to irritate him, simply said, back up, and bam. There was Secret, crashing into 2 criminals not a few minutes later. Secret is, well, Secret. He's only gotten a response out of Secret twice, and one of those was asking for his name. The other one was asking if Silence was his partner. Other than that, nothing. He doesn't speak during a fight, doesn't speak after a fight, doesn't like to stick around for very long, and won't let Shoyuta close often enough for him to get a word in edgewise. Getting close to Secret is like coaxing a stray cat close enough to give them food. Getting close to Silence is like trying to keep a stray cat from following you home. It's frustrating, knowing he's been working their case for almost 3 months with no progress. Estimated age range is about 16 to 25. They're skilled enough that they could have been taught at a hero school but never made the cut when the cards were down. Estimated biological gender are male for both, but it's hard to really nail it down for sure. He has no answer for any appearance-based questions. No eye or hair color, and it's hard to see skin color in the dark unless it's bright and eye-catching. They don't travel outside of their zones often, but it's not unheard of for them both to be spotted somewhere else. They won't take any peace offerings. Shoyuta once brought them both snacks, because they work sundown to sunup, but they refused to even touch it. He once brought a few extra water bottles for them, but nothing. Silence once started to doze off on one of the rare times the two of them took a break and let him close enough to take a break with them, and then immediately snapped awake the moment Shoyuta tried to reach out and wake him up. They reject his touch, Secret won't even look at him half the time, let alone speak to him, and Silence only speaks to him to PSS him off. It's infuriating. He's getting nowhere with these brats because they won't let him close enough to do so. Is it so bad that Shoyuta wants to help them, steer them towards getting actual licenses? Silence, the chatty one, shut him down hard. When Shoyuta brought it up once. Hard as in, shut Shoyuta up with a few sharp words and then take off with secret before Shoyuta could even think about trying to follow them. They plague his mind day and night. Sometimes he wonders if they're sleeping at all. Sometimes he wonders if tonight will be the night he loses one of them. Even Hizashi is starting to worry about them, because Shoyuta talks about them enough it feels like Hizashi is in Shuta's shoes. He worries if they're eating enough, resting their bodies, and healing after getting injured. Maybe he's getting too close to this case? Eraser. About time, and here I thought you had a hot date. Silence chirps from below, Shoyuta having barely noticed his presence in the alley below him. He wastes no time in jumping down into the alley, expecting a fight, but getting none. The alleyway is empty except for Silence and Secret, who seem to have been waiting for him. The thought of them waiting for him makes his shoulders tense. They wouldn't ambush him, would they? Eraser head. Secret says, and it makes Shoyuta tense even further. Something must be going on if Secret is speaking to him. Is everything all right? Shoyuta asks cautiously. He wants to give these two the benefit of the doubt and not suspect they're fixing to attack him in a secluded alleyway, where they block the entrance to the street. The alley is small enough that getting back to the roofs will be a little more difficult to manage than usual. If a fight breaks out between them, Shoyuta is outnumbered and outclassed. These two could take him apart in mere minutes with their skill and efficiency. No, nothing's wrong, Eraser. Just wanted to chat. Silence says, copying Shuta's voice in that eerie way of his. Chat. Shoyuta says blandly, resisting the urge to grab his scarf and lower his goggles. Yup, walk with us, won't you? Silence says. There's an edge of a threat in his voice. He knows because that's how Shoyuta sounds when he's threatening someone subtly. Shoyuta swallows down the dread the notion fills him with. Sure. Maybe he should go ahead and press his panic button now while he has the chance? No, what is he thinking? There's just two of them. Shuta's fought more than that with his eyes closed, literally. The two step off the walls of the alley they were leaning on and slip out onto the streets, heading up to the rooftops. Shoyuta follows, though he wishes he didn't, considering a fight on the rooftops is worse than a fight in a crowded alley. If they get the drop on him on a roof, especially a high one, they could throw him off it. He suddenly wishes he had woken Hizashi up for a kiss before he left. They lead him onto a thankfully short building, where they lean against a railing and give him the center of the roof. It makes some of the rising panic in his throat fade. This means they aren't here for a fight. Right? It's silent between the three of them for a minute, which usually means Shoyuta will have to speak first. So Dash. Your birthday is coming up soon. Secret says, not like it's a question but a fact. How did they dash? No, better not to question Secret. It'll make him shut down and refuse to speak again. And if Secret is leading the conversation, it means that if Secret shuts down, so will Silence. That is correct. Shoyuta responds. Why do they want to talk about his birthday of all things? You're planning on patrolling the night before your birthday. Again, Secret doesn't phrase it as a question but a fact. They have his patrolling schedule? Again, that is correct. Shoyuta says, keeping his voice level and face emotionless. Don't. Silence speaks up. Shoyuta hesitates before responding. They don't want him to patrol the night before his birthday? But what are they planning to do? Why? Shoyuta asks. Wouldn't want you to wake up falling between buildings. Secret says, and Silence snorts, the sounds briefly making the voice modulator fritz. So it was the mask all along, but what for? Also, are they threatening him? I'm not sure what you mean. It means what it means. Don't patrol the night before your birthday. Mark my words, you very well might regret it. Secret continues, and Shoyuta just now realized that there isn't a voice modulator like Silence has. At least, he doesn't think so. The voice sounds young, but he knows better than to take anything at face value with these two. You can't make me not patrol, I'm a hero. It's my job. Shoyuta says. Even so, he's starting to think it'll be good to stay home that night. If Secret is the one telling him to do this, doesn't that make it important? Secret's not exactly talkative. Not to him at least. He does sometimes hear silence respond to something no one asked, so maybe only silence can hear him? Maybe it's something Secret decides himself? A telepathic quirk maybe? Well then, hero, let's put it this way. Stay home with Hizashi or else. Secret says, and it makes Shoyuta JRK in place. He never even told these two he was married, let alone to who. Just how much does Secret know about him? How do you dash? I know a lot of things, Eraser. Secret cuts him off, raising a hand as if to examine his nails, but Shoyuta doesn't feel the eyes that are so sharp beneath those goggles leave him. I know you teach as a homeroom teacher to class 1A at UA. I know you like cats. I know you pretend to prefer to drink your coffee black in front of people, but you actually really like the extremely sugary iced coffees more. Or that you are the first and only UA student to have transferred to heroics from Gen Ed. Shoyuta feels himself go cold as Secret keeps going, telling Shoyuta things about himself he hasn't told these two. I know you lost a friend before you ever even graduated, the only heroic student to have died on a work study. I know your favorite color is yellow, like Hizashi's hair. Oh God, what is happening? I know you sleep in pink pajama pants because it was the last gift Shirakumo ever gave you. And above all, I know you need to stay home the night before your birthday. Do we have an understanding here? Shoyuta nods slowly, thoroughly intimidated. Secret knows too many things about him for Shoyuta to just refuse, especially when he can hear the threat in Secret's words. He knows Oboro's name, he knows Shuta's preferred coffee, he knows about Hizashi, about Shuta's favorite color and why. Just who the hell are Secret and Silence? Good. Secret says, sounding satisfied with himself. Shoyuta tries to swallow down the lump of coal in his throat. Now go home. Silence and I have it handled. Tonight. Shoyuta doesn't even hesitate to listen this time. On his way back to his apartment, the first number he calls is Hizashi. Hizashi picks up the phone on the fourth ring, voice slurred from sleep. It makes the knot in his chest loosen a little. Sho. I'm on my way home. Shoyuta says, short and sharp, and doesn't give his husband a chance to respond before hanging up and calling Tsukachi. Detective Tsuka dash. Tsukachi starts to say in a lazy drawl. Meet me at my apartment pronto. It's an emergency. Eraser? Is everything dash? Just do it. Shoyuta hangs up the phone and picks up the pace. He needs to see Hizashi, needs to confirm with his own eyes that he's okay. Even though his breathing is shallow, even though his chest is tightening in the signs of a panic attack, he moves over the rooftops faster than the wind. What the hell has he gotten himself into? Did you have to freak him out so much? Hitoshi asks, and Izuku doesn't even look back at him as they fly across the rooftops. Hitoshi barely refrains from rolling his eyes. He knows better than to get distracted while roof hopping. It's not like I had any other choice. You know how Shoyuta is, had to make sure that he would listen to my demands. Izuku responds through the comm link. Still, you didn't have to send him halfway into a panic attack. Hitoshi grumbles. Better a panic attack in the safety of his home than being disoriented mid-jump between buildings. I'd rather freak him out than risk him waking up falling through the air to his death. Izuku responds. Hitoshi has to admit, it's a logical fear. At their ages, neither of them had to wake up from the jump while their past self was already awake, let alone patrolling. Only a week away. In 1 week, Dad will be back with them, and then they can really get down to business. Hitoshi and Izuku have already started chipping away at the outer edges of All for One's empire, but they've kept it sporadic enough so as not to raise too much suspicion. This way it seems as if they're just pesky little vigilantes nipping at All for One's heels without knowing that they could be crushed at any moment. All for One is the type to not dirty his hands with what he deems insects in his web. Besides, according to Izuku, All Might's big clash with All for One happened when they were about 10, so it's likely that All for One is still recovering. 2 years can be a long time, but not long enough to heal the type of injuries All Might gave him. Ideally, now would be the time to strike, while All for One is still weak and recovering. Problem with that is they don't have the manpower for a full frontal assault. Even with Dad, it still won't be an easy fight. They need to creep up from behind. Keep their movements relatively quiet, keep AFO from seeing their intentions. Slowly whittle away at AFO's forces, then strike when the iron is hot. Tipping their hand too early will just lead to death. And given that Izuku doesn't have one for all, it'll be that much harder to manage. Hitoshi suddenly feels homesick. Not for the destroyed future where all his friends and family were dead or dying, but for the home he barely got to have before it was ripped away. With Pops in the kitchen, dancing to a song in his head as he makes breakfast. Where Eri manages without fail to sneak into Hitoshi's room at night without waking him up. Where Dad never forgets to show Hitoshi affection, even though Eri needs 10 times more attention than he does. Mirio dropping by on the weekends to take Eri and Hitoshi to the movies, the park, wherever. Izuku and the rest of 1A in the dorms having movie nights and cuddle sessions and study groups, and always making sure Hitoshi feels included and accepted. He misses home. Toshi, Izuku says through the comms. Go check on them, I've got it handled tonight. Are you sure? Hitoshi asks, but he's already tensing midair to make a U-turn and head to Dad and Pop's apartment. It's a bad habit, checking in on them when they don't know he's there. He doesn't do it often. Sometimes he just needs to see them, alive and happy. He does it with the others too, and so does Izuku, but Hitoshi isn't supposed to know that. Go! Without wasting time, Hitoshi twists his body, shoots out a gauntlet and heads in the direction Dad took off to. He lands in the tree not much later, the one just outside their apartment building. Climbing the branches to get to the right apartment, Hitoshi settles into the leaves and just watches. Dad is sitting on the couch with a mug of what Hitoshi assumes is coffee, Pops hovering beside him with a look of worry. Tsukachi is there too, a serious frown on his face. Adjusting his mask, he listens in to the conversation in silence. It's a new feature, allowing them to amp up the auditory intake to hear things they usually wouldn't be able to. Settling further into the canopy, Hitoshi just watches and listens. Are you sure? Tsukachi says, frowning down at his notepad. Hitoshi can't see it from here, but he assumes Dad told him about his meeting with Silence and Secret. I'm sure. They knew too much about me. Secret made it very clear that he could have kept listing more things about me if he wanted. Dad says, and even Hitoshi can see him give a full body shiver. It's the most Secret ever said to me at once. But how did they know so much about you? Pops asks, and he's picking at his lip in the way he does when he's nervous. Izuku does it too. I've no idea. Neither of them let me get very close where I could share all of those things with them. They're skittish and paranoid, and frankly, I don't think Secret likes me very much. Dad says. I can't explain it, but they scared me. I've never been so intimidated in my life. Did they show any signs of aggression? Tsukachi asks. No, at least not through body language. Their words were enough. Dad says. Was there anything in particular you could have done to make Secret so interested in you? Not that I can think of. Silence likes to irritate me, but Secret barely even looks at me half the time. Hitoshi leans forward to try and listen closer, not that it would help much, but the movement he does startles the sleeping birds into taking off violently. All three heads snap in his direction, and Hitoshi sees the exact moment Dad notices his position. He bites back a wince. If he runs, that'll solidify to Dad that he's a threat. Deciding to wing it, he stands up on the tree branch and walks down with ease. Hopping down on the balcony of their apartment, he straightens to see Dad and Pops both. In a fighting stance. Tsukachi has his phone out, probably calling for backup. Not about to let this get any worse, Hitoshi taps a nice little device secured in one of his calf pockets. It blocks electronic signals, something Izuku made while bored one night. Tsukachi exclaims in shock, and Hitoshi reaches out to slide the balcony door open. He doesn't step inside, just leans against the frame. Silence. Dad breathes out, voice shaky. This probably looks bad. Eraser, Mike, detective. Fancy seeing you here. Hitoshi says, deciding to keep mimicking Dad's voice for the time being. He'd rather not make any sudden movements that'll make them spring into action and attack him. What are you doing here? Dad demands, shakiness fading as he crouches into a lower stance, one hand on his capture scarf. Can't I just come to say hello? No one answers him, and he bites back a sigh. Man, he effed up tonight. Alright. I came to apologize. He didn't, but that's his story and he's sticking to it, despite the way Tsukachi's eye twitches at the lie. He forgot. No, you aren't. Tell the truth. Hitoshi steps off the frame and spreads his hands out placatingly. You're right, but since I'm here anyways. What are you apologizing for? Pop says, my partner can be a bit intense, that's all. Just so you don't freak out, neither of us want you hurt. True. Tsukachi says. Then why did you tell Eraser not to patrol the night before his birthday? Hitoshi tilts his head. Because it would be wise if he didn't. For his own safety, of course. But what are you planning? Oh, Dad is a lot more confident asking questions now. Maybe because it's just him and no secret? I'm not planning anything. Which is true, he's not. Then what is secret planning? Tsukachi asks. He always knew how to manipulate a conversation. That's a secret. Hitoshi says, giggling a little. Get it? Secret? I thought that was cute. What were you doing outside my apartment? Dad asks, looking unfazed. Dimon, one of these days, probably after Dad jumps, he'll get him to smile. I was enjoying the scenery. Silence, I might need backup. Izuku says through the comms suddenly. Be right there, just let me wrap this up. Who are you talking to? Pop says. It's secret, they have a comm link. Dad responds. Hitoshi is barely paying attention. Wrap what up? What did you do? Might have been spotted and am now confronting Eraser, Mike, and Tsukachi. Might not have. Who can really say? There's silence both in the apartment and on the comms for a moment. And then, I'm on my way. No need, head back, I'll meet you there shortly. Toshi dash. I'll be fine. Hitoshi drawls, still eyeing the three in front of him who are still watching him in silence. They won't hurt me because they won't get the chance. I've got this handled. Fine. Be careful. Always am. Hitoshi responds brightly, and he hears a snort on the other end before the comm is disconnected. Hitoshi slowly takes a step backwards. Now then. This has been fun, but that's my cue to leave. Oh no, you don't dash, Dad growls, snapping out a length of his scarf. Hitoshi reacts quickly, sending out a gauntlet strip to tangle the scarf with and yanks hard. It makes Dad stumble. Reaching into his right calf pocket, he grabs a dummy grenade and tosses it. Here, catch. Dad scrambles to catch the fake explosive before it hits the ground, and when he does that, Hitoshi makes his escape. He's flying across rooftops before anyone has the chance to follow, and with the auditory intake still high, he hears Dad yell out a very heartfelt F-. Hitoshi lowers the auditory sensors back to normal as he heads back to base. Izuku is going to be said. Shoyuta wakes up sitting in a chair in a police precinct. He's alone, so he doesn't even bother trying to hide his groan of suffering as a headache blooms in his forehead and his stomach twists itself into knots. He leg aches where what should have been a stump rests, so he knows the jump was at least somewhat successful. Even so, the side effects are no joke. Groaning, he blinks his eyes open slowly, and then shuts them right after when the double vision makes his stomach hurt worse. He doesn't have time for this, he needs to find his kids. As if on cue, his phone dings and he digs it out of his pocket, blinking at the brightness. Unlocking it is easy, he used to only put in the date the Oboro supposedly died as his lock code. Opening up his email, he sees a message from an unknown address. From C0mim3n3zoo@yahoo.com. To eraserhead@yahoo.com. 1217131SE. Shoyuta responds accordingly, still unsure what the hell those numbers even mean. Also, he'd bet good money it was Hitoshi who made the email address a challenge to the smartest rat in Japan, because Izuku is too polite to be so bold. In response to his confirmation email, he gets a simple address that he knows is a cafe he used to frequent. Will frequent? That was where he and Hizashi offered to adopt Hitoshi. So at least he knows which brat is emailing him, though whether both kids made it back safely is a question left unanswered. He checks the date, just to be sure, and sighs in relief when it shows he's in the correct year. Shoyuta gathers his capture scarf and goggles, still unsure why he's sleeping at the precinct and not in his own bed, and heads out the door. It's odd having both feet and eyes. Being able to properly discern depth and not walk with a limp is a luxury he will never take for granted again. Naomasa comes across him before he can get away quietly. It's hard to shut down the choking tears before they fall at seeing an old friend alive and kicking. Years of compartmentalizing is the only reason he can look Naomasa in the eye without breaking down. "Eraser, where are you going?" Nao says, sounding oddly alarmed. Immediately, Shoyuta knows this is the kid's fault. Whatever they did to freak out Naomasa so easily couldn't have been good. God, why does he have to deal with this? "I'm going out." "You can't," Naomasa says, sounding almost desperate. Shuta's eyes narrow. "And why the hell not? The vigilantes threatened you. I know you hate being told what to do, but I can't let you leave this precinct. It's for your safety," Naomasa says, crossing his arms. He looks more frazzled than usual, and that's saying something to Shoyuta, who watched this man spiral downwards after Toshinori was killed when Yue fell. Vigilantes? Birthday? Safety? This is Hitoshi's fault, he knows it. It's always Hitoshi's fault. Shoyuta will die on this hill. Sighing through his nose, he puts on his most defiant look and stares Naomasa down. "I'm not going to roll over because a couple vigilantes told me to. I'm going out and you can't stop me. Shoyuta, please don't dash." Shoyuta ignores him and marches quickly out of the precinct, shoving him to the side to slow him down so Shoyuta can get away faster. He races through the bullpen quickly, the other officers barely batting an eye as they move aside. Shoyuta has long conditioned all the precincts and officers he interacts with to get the hell out of his way when he's moving with purpose. He gets out of the doors just as Naomasa reaches the bullpen, and a round of shouts follow him as he leaves, taking to the rooftops quickly with Naomasa hollering behind him. God damn it, what did his brats do? He's gonna wring their necks for making this so hard for him. He was supposed to disappear quietly. This is not quiet. Shoyuta lands on a rooftop and stumbles, nearly falling flat on his face. He's used to having to rely on his only remaining foot. He's not used to having 2 feet to work with anymore. Stupid FNG apocalypse. Stupid FNG Nomu. Shoyuta grits his teeth and flies across the rooftops as well as he can manage, stumbling as he lands harshly at the address of the cafe. Or the address of where the cafe will be, given this is only an abandoned building at the moment. Eyeing the security cameras nearby, he slips inside and avoids as many as possible. Nezu will track his movements after he disappears, so he might as well make it harder on the rat. He automatically heads to the 2nd floor, knowing his kids won't stay on ground level. They've gotten used to staying in the center floors when in a building, so they can't be blindsided by flying Nomu, but they also won't be completely crushed should the building collapse. Shoyuta spots his kids easily when he enters the 2nd room on the 2nd floor. They're wearing well-designed black suits, probably Mei's design for their battle gear. Hitoshi lights up when he sees Shoyuta, mask dangling on his neck and goggles pushed into his hair. "Dad!" "Hey brats," Shoyuta says fondly, holding the boys close as they go in for a hug. They let him go soon after, and Shoyuta crosses his arms and raises an eyebrow. "Either of you want to explain why I woke up in a police precinct, and why Naomasa was refusing to let me leave?" Izuku immediately pins Hitoshi with a glare. "Ask your son." Hitoshi rubs his neck sheepishly and doesn't answer. Shoyuta rubs a hand down his face in exasperation. He knew it. Of course this is Hitoshi's fault. "Never mind, do you guys have a base yet?" Izuku immediately lights up with a smile, free and happy in a way he hasn't seen since Katsuki. "Yeah, and Hitoshi let me decorate it however I wanted." As if Hitoshi is the boss here. Shoyuta and Hitoshi share a look of amusement at Izuku's naivete. "Then let's go. You can tell me everything you've been up to without me when we get there." And boy, what a story it is. Apparently, they threatened his younger self to keep him from patrolling tonight. Then Hitoshi got caught spying outside of his apartment, which turned into a whole ordeal, and in response, Naomasa forbade him from leaving the precinct until after his birthday had passed. Which is why, when Shoyuta tried to leave, Naomasa refused to let him. Not that it did much to stop him. Looking from an outsider's perspective, he can see how this will look to Nezu and Naomasa. Two vigilantes which Shoyuta had been trying to get close to for 3 months suddenly warn him not to go out on his birthday, but he does it anyway, and then suddenly he disappears? They'll likely think the two vigilantes knew something would happen, either through a quirk like foresight, or from whispers through the underground, and tried to warn him to stay home. So when Shoyuta doesn't listen, and he disappears, it'll look less like they were trying to threaten him and more like they were trying to keep him safe from what would happen tonight. On the bright side, this will play into our favor. I wasn't sure how I was going to just disappear with no warning or reasoning, so this kind of set it up for me. Shoyuta says when they're done with their story. I agree, I just wish it didn't have to be this way. Izuku says, sounding much more like the war veteran Shoyuta remembers him being. It's okay, at least this way we can get our job done more easily, and we won't have to pretend to be someone we aren't anymore. Shoyuta says, feeling like he's said this 100 times. Deciding to change the subject, Shoyuta stands up from the bed he was sitting on. It's the only part of the base he's seen except for a quick glance around when he came in. Why don't you show me around the base, yeah? Izuku perks up and immediately starts running his mouth. Shoyuta dutifully follows behind him to every station as Izuku explains what it is, what they got to put it together, and reasoning behind it. Hitoshi walks beside him, hands tucked into the jacket of the vigilante suit he's still wearing. Quietly, he leans down to speak to Hitoshi without grabbing Izuku's attention. You did good, kid. Thanks for making him as happy as possible until I returned. Shoyuta says. Hitoshi smiles softly, ducking his head even though there's no capture scarf to hide the tiny pleased smile. Anything for you, Dad. Hitoshi responds. The day before they met with Kazu to perform the jump, Shoyuta had pulled Hitoshi and Nito aside. He asked them to watch over Izuku and over each other. They all knew it would be harder for Izuku without Shoyuta there to be his rock, so they agreed readily. Izuku may be the best of them all, but no man is a mountain, and Izuku had only ever let Shoyuta see his cracks. He's so glad Hitoshi and Izuku had each other to lean on. But it's your problem if he wants to bring up stealing motorcycles again. Shoyuta stumbles slightly mid-step. Do what? Shoyuta asks incredulously, but Hitoshi never answers, instead speeding up to walk by Izuku, who is still rambling excitedly about everything in the base, throwing a smirk over his shoulder. Cheeky brat. He's got to admit though, they did a hell of a job with their new base. Lit up by a canopy of fairy lights and the bright lights that came with the garage. Relatively large spaces separated out to make rooms for them to sleep in. Somehow Izuku reconfigured the piping in the bathroom to create a makeshift shower. They even have access to the second floor underground, which Izuku has claimed as his workstation. A makeshift kitchen, a lounge area, even a huge sparring circle in the center of the room. Shoyuta gets the feeling that Izuku tried to make this crappy underground parking garage into something of his dream agency. He used to talk to him about it all the time. Used to dream about his entire class running the agency together as one large group. How everyone would group off to run different aspects of the agency. Like Hitoshi, Toru, and a few others going underground would run the underground aspects such as undercover missions, gang busts, things of that nature. And how Katsuki, Izuku, and Shudo would be the faces of the agency. How Ochako would be head over rescue, and Tsu would be head over water-based ops. Talking about his dream agency used to be a coping mechanism for the deaths of his classmates. Shoyuta can't for the life of him remember the last time Izuku talked about that old dream of his. Poor kid has suffered so much pain, so much loss, and yet he was still going strong. Never giving up the good fight. Never backing down. This time, Shoyuta will protect his kids. This time, he won't lose them so brutally. Hitoshi said something to Izuku in the midst of his rambling that made the two of them start wrestling on the floor like they're 5. Sighing in defeat, despite the slight smile on his face, Shoyuta goes to break them up. He won't say it out loud, but seeing Izuku act like a child again helps mend some of the cracks in his heart. Nezu isn't the type to get angry easily, but right now he's infuriated. Someone stole from him, took away one of his favorite humans. They took something that is his, someone he calls precious. Shoyuda is one of the few of his staff that aren't remotely terrified of him. Shoyuda understands him in ways no human has ever understood him before. They aren't nearly on the same level intellectually, but Shoyuda is, in a way, one of the only things keeping him from going off the deep end. And someone took him. Right out from under Nezu's nose, like it was easy. Shoyuda is an incredibly stubborn man. Nezu isn't surprised that he got anxious from being forced to stay either in UA's walls or a precinct. He's the type of human that doesn't let anyone command him, who does his own thing, and doesn't work well with authority. Being told what to do is one of Shuda's biggest pet peeves. Nezu understands. It's one of the reasons he let the man get away with so many expulsions every year. But someone stole him. Took away something precious, something good in Nezu's life, and what's worse? They left no evidence for Nezu to track them down and rain down the fires of hell. The only thing Nezu has to go off of is a single email address and message. The address itself is an immature kind of challenge to Nezu, but the message is what's important. It's short and cryptic, a sequence of numbers and letters that Nezu can't determine the meaning of. 1217131 SC. Not an address. Not coordinates. Not a zip code or phone number. It isn't decipherable by any code-breaking technique Nezu knows, and he knows them all. No one's birth, death, or anniversary date that Shoyuda would know. By all means, it looks like a random string of numbers and letters. But it means something, to Shoyuda at least. Followed by the same sequence of numbers sent to the email from Shoyuda, is an address. An abandoned building, one that has no significance to Shoyuda that Nezu or Yamada can think of. The dust in the second floor is disturbed in one of the rooms, showing evidence of at least 3 people, but possibly more. No fingerprints or DNA left behind. No evidence that who was there left or entered the room naturally. Did they use the window or was it a warp quirk? There's no signs of a struggle, so either Shoyuda went willingly or he was taken out before he had the chance to fight. Did Shoyuda know these people? Is that why there's no struggle marks on the floor? It's no secret that of all the heroes in the area, Shoyuda has the most extensive underground network of informants and spies. Could it be a contact he's made in the past? Then there's the reason Shoyuda was grounded to UA or a police precinct. 2 vigilantes, part of a case Shoyuda had been working on. According to Tsukachi, Shoyuda wasn't making very much progress in the case. The vigilantes, Silence and Secret, were accepting of his help when taking down criminals and villains, but any further and they would back away. Shuda's analysis of the 2 vigilantes was threadbare, which is unusual for someone with such a high rehabilitation rate as Shoyuda had. Silence, despite his name, is chatty and antagonizing. He finds joy in pissing off his enemies and Shoyuda alike. A master manipulator of words, intelligent, but not quite up to Nezu's standards. Possible minor intelligence quirk. He's fast, skilled, and clearly trained in some way or another. Possible speed quirk, possible voice mimicry quirk. Shoyuda had noted down the possibility that he was a hero school dropout, but he was unsure. Secret, the partner to Silence, is almost completely a mystery. Not one to interact verbally, keeping his distance, staying silent 99% of the time. He's closed off, wary, and judging by what Shoyuda told Tsukachi of their last encounter, very likely the leader of the 2. Silence defers to Secret when Secret decides to speak up. Fast, skilled, trained. Possible intelligence or speed quirk. Like Silence, Shoyuda noted the possibility of a hero school dropout. But Secret is also incredibly intelligent, more so than Silence. Genius levels, if Shoyuda was correct in his assumptions. And Shoyuda is very rarely wrong when it comes to potential. Silence was the first to hit the scene, but Secret runs the show. Silence likes to talk, but will go silent if Secret starts the conversation. Secret only ever has meaningful things to say, whereas Silence talks just to talk and annoy Shoyuda. According to Shuda's personal notes, he was playing with the idea to bring Nezu in on the case. Shoyuda is Nezu's favorite human, and he will very easily burn the world down if Shoyuda simply says the word. However, that doesn't mean he asks for Nezu's help on cases. It is a dire situation if Shoyuta wants his help and asks for it willingly. The implications of this does not make Nezu feel any less uncomfortable. Those two knew something would happen the night before Shuta's birthday, and warned him. That's the important part. They knew something would happen. Went out of their ways to threaten Shoyuta to stay home. Silence even followed Shoyuta home that night. Tsukachi never got his answer for why the vigilante was truly there, but Nezu has an idea. Silence was there to make sure Shoyuta got home safe. It had to be, why else would Silence show up outside the apartment the way he did? He doesn't know, and it's killing him. Surely he's overlooked something somewhere. Surely there's some sort of clue, some sort of pattern that he's missing. Surely, Nezu, the smartest being in Japan, can figure out who took his human. There's a knock on his office door, and Nezu startles, realizing he missed seeing someone walking close to his office to open the door preemptively. Not one to delay, Nezu opens the door for his guest, watching as Kayama walks in. She looks as immaculate as ever, but Nezu sees the weariness in her posture, the bags hidden underneath a layer of makeup. He can see that her smile is fake, a little less stuck than she usually uses. Kayama, please come in. Would you like some tea? Nezu says, trying to retain his usual cheer to put her more at ease. It doesn't work, and her shoulders slump just that minuscule amount more. No thank you. I came to check up on you. Kayama says, apparently too tired to put up any pretenses. You've been locked in your office for a week now, it's not healthy. Nezu disagrees. He's staying hydrated and he eats the food lunch rush brings him even when he doesn't want to. He's making sure he sleeps at the very minimum amount to be functional. He thinks he's handling this all very well. All things considered, that is. Don't worry about me so much, I'm doing just fine. Nezu says, and belatedly realized that perhaps his tone was too sharp. After a moment, he also realizes he had let his smile drop. Sir, please. This is hard on all of us, and you working yourself into an early grave isn't helping. Kayama says, ignoring his words. She cuts him off when he goes to reply, and while usually that would irritate him, it just makes him tired. He's so very tired. I know you want to find Shoyuta, we all do, and we will, but we can't do that when our brightest mind and strongest asset is not at his best. I understand your concern, but the longer Shoyuta is not found, the higher the statistic of him never being found grows. I cannot stand by and fail him. Nezu tries to explain. He turns back to his computer to continue working while they speak, so as not to waste any time he could be using to find his human. Someone took what belongs to me and I will make them pay. That is a promise. Sir Dash. You're dismissed, Midnight. Kayama winces at the informal address and the cold tone Nezu uses, but he's far too busy to deal with silly things as emotions. He has to find his human. The key must lie with the vigilantes. They knew something that Nezu didn't. They knew something bad would happen and tried to keep his human safe. He just has to find a way to track them down and get into contact. It won't be easy, vigilantes are skittish when it comes to Nezu. He's too much of a threat to those in between the black and white sides of the law. But he has to find his human, he has to bring him home. Nezu is intelligent enough to know his fatal flaws intimately. His possessiveness is one of them, his need to be the smartest in the room, the most powerful, is another. Most of the time, these flaws are a detriment to his work, but right now it's the only thing keeping him motivated. Shoyuta is his human, and he will not rest until his human is back with his lover and friends and students. 2 weeks after Shoyuta disappeared, Izuku is contacted by Principal Nezu. He's not surprised, what with how the situation probably looks to an outsider. Nezu probably assumes they had threatened Shoyuta to keep him safe, only to fail due to Shuta's notorious stubbornness. How Nezu figured out his hacker persona, sequence, was connected to silence and secret, Izuku doesn't know, and frankly he doesn't care. Nezu had managed to contact Sequence through less than legal channels, not bothering to disguise his identity. If Izuku had to guess, he would say that Nezu kept his identity clear to try and bridge a form of trust between himself and Sequence, and therefore the two vigilantes Sequence is associated with. Izuku is currently engaging in a back-and-forth negotiation with Nezu regarding a possible meetup. Hitoshi is out on patrol, and Shoyuta is asleep. They don't want to bring him in until enough time passes that there is no logical reason to assume Soldier Shuta's new vigilante name, to represent their pasts as soldiers fighting a losing war, is also Eraserhead. For the most part, Shoyuta has been retraining himself with the gauntlets, so that he doesn't make the mistake of accidentally reaching to his neck for his capture scarf. Nezu is surely pressing hard for an in-person meeting right now. He must be desperate, with the trail having gone cold in the search for Eraserhead, given they haven't let Shoyuta out of the base at all for any chances of accidental witnesses. Izuku hates having to put Nezu through this, hates having to put anyone through this, but they only have so much time to stop the end of the world, and they've already wasted 4.5 months. It'll be 5 months before they can really get things done. Nipping at the edges is fine and all, but time flies faster when you have something to do. Izuku idly wonders if they should have jumped further back. Give themselves more time to work. The only thing is, they were already pushing it, having Kazu send 3 grown but humans into the past as far back as he did. Kazu was about a decade younger than Izuku himself. He would have just received his quirk when things went downhill, and 5-year-olds can only do so much. By the time Kazu was old enough to do anything, the country had already fallen into ruin. So it's up to them, 3 of the last surviving heroes, the last rebels in a losing war. They can't afford to lose. There is no guarantee that Kazu will be able to do this all over again, having not sent himself back. He'll have no memories of how to use his quirk, no idea who the 3 of them are. Kazu will, naturally, be distrustful of them, which means not relying on the possibility of another jump. But first, before they can start making real changes, they need to contend with Nezu. The sooner Izuku gets Nezu to give up his search, or at least not get any further, the sooner they can bring Shoyuta into the open as the vigilante soldier. The wait is making Izuku anxious. He doesn't want to miss out on rebuilding the relationships of their past. But none of them can go back to UA until All for One is taken out. The sooner the better. Izuku's ears twitch with the sound of movement behind him, the sound of familiar footsteps approaching. Problem child, what are you still doing up? Shoyuta says, sounding groggy and barely alive. He must have just woken up. Expediting Nezu's fruitless search for you so we can get started for real. The sooner he realizes he has nothing to go on to find you, the better. So I'm setting up a meeting between us. Izuku responds, also typing out a response to Nezu. Nezu is trying to retain control of the meeting, but Izuku knows better. He won't allow Nezu to hold any control, because Nezu is too smart. Give him an inch and he'll steal a mile out from under your nose. You think that's wise? Probably not, at least if we aren't careful. I'll have Hitoshi let me do the talking. I know how to play Nezu's games better than anyone else, and I don't want Hitoshi unintentionally giving anything away that we want to keep close to the chest. Izuku explains, typing out another response to Nezu. He's starting to wear Nezu down, making him give in to having no control over the situation. Besides, at this point, Nezu is desperate enough to give up control of the meeting to me, or rather sequence. 2 weeks is a long time when it comes to kidnapping cases. Just be careful, kiddo. Shoyuta sighs after a moment of silent consideration. He puts a hand into Izuku's hair, soothing his fingers through Izuku's shorn locks. He keeps his hair extremely short now to avoid his wild curls getting out from underneath the hood. Hitoshi just keeps his braided tightly to the back of his head, and likely so will Shoyuta when the time comes. Izuku leans into the gentle contact for a moment. Of course, when am I ever not careful? Izuku says, pouting when Shoyuta snorts like he just made a hilarious joke. He turns back to the computer, answering Nezu's message and finally gaining total control. Now that Nezu has given up his own need for control, Izuku sends the rat a meeting address, telling him to be there in an hour. Getting up from his place at his computer station when Nezu agrees, he makes his way to the displays where they keep their suits. It makes the base feel a lot more like an agency when they have their suits on proud display like this, and he can never thank Shoyuta and Hitoshi enough for letting him have this small piece of comfort. Dressing quickly, he makes his way to the kitchenette where Shoyuta is making a cup of coffee to wake himself up. Hood and mask lowered and goggles on top of his head, Izuku makes a noise to grab Shuta's attention. Show Yuta, I've set the meeting up to be in an hour to give Nezu less time to be prepared. If you want to observe, the camera on my goggles will be activated and you can watch from my computer station. I've already pulled up the program for you. It'll have audio as well. Show Yuta nods. Thank you. I'll be ready in my suit in case you need backup, you know the code word. Thanks. Though I doubt we'll need it, it makes me feel better knowing you're prepared for a fight. Izuku says. I'll be going now. I'll contact Hitoshi on the way to have him meet me there. With a grunt of acknowledgement, another pat on Izuku's head, and a bland statement of good luck, Izuku heads out of the base. Tapping his mask to activate the comm link, he connects to Hitoshi. Silence, a meeting has been called with Principal Nezu. I don't know who all he's bringing, but be prepared for a possible ambush. Izuku says. Understood, send the coordinates. Dad? Hitoshi asks. Watching and listening from home base and suited up in case of the need for backup. Let me handle the talking. Will do, boss. Hitoshi says, cutting the connection in the middle of Izuku's grumbles. He hates it when they call him that. They're equals, not a master and his servants. Izuku gets to the meeting spot with about a half hour to spare, and he crouches on top of an adjacent building as he waits for everyone else to arrive. The place he chose is a park, the specific location being the center fountain. The space is wide open enough to not allow an easy ambush without Izuku or Hitoshi seeing anyone coming, and also out in the open, where Nezu won't be able to hide listening devices or trackers. 10 minutes before the designated meeting time, Hitoshi lands silently on the rooftop beside him. No words are exchanged between them as they keep an eye on their surroundings. A few minutes later and a car pulls up, lights off. Izuku watches for who will exit the car. Tsukachi, Hizashi, Nezu and Namuri all exit the vehicle, with Nezu hitching a ride on Hizashi's shoulders. Hitoshi and him exchange a glance, and then they simultaneously shoot out a gauntlet, latching onto a light pole across the street to swing to ground level. Their approach is noticed immediately, given that's what Izuku chose the park for in the first place, and as Izuku gets closer he can see how much of a wreck the four of them are. Namuri's hair looks a little matted at the ends, like she had started to brush her hair and then never finished the job. Her eyes look weary and tired, and she isn't wearing her makeup and mask, only her suit. She's also only wearing a pair of combat boots instead of her ridiculously impractical high heels. Tsukachi looks like he hasn't slept in 5 days, but that he has gotten plastered for all 5 of them. His stubble is growing in, like he just didn't bother shaving, and he's not even wearing his hat. Nezu looks more put together than them both, but only by a margin. He too looks sleep-deprived and weary. His fur doesn't look like its usual shiny coat, dulled by poor self-care. No cheery smile, whether fake or not, is plastered on his snout, and he looks more desperate than manic. And poor Hizashi. It's clear to Izuku just who is suffering the most. Matted hair tied up in a knotty bun with flyaways sticking in the air at an angle that suggests he never fully washed out the hair gel for his usual wild hairstyle. Swollen eyes, red from crying, and bruised from lack of sleep. He's wearing one of Shuta's shirts, judging by its looseness on his lithe figure, and a familiar pair of pink sweatpants. His shoulders are hunched into the spare capture scarf tied around his neck. Hitoshi reaches up to his mask and switches to private comms. I know we hurt people by disappearing, but it's one thing to know it and another to see it in person. Hitoshi says, sounding forlorn. Izuku hums in agreement, and Hitoshi doesn't cut the line of communication. Likely because, even though he's staying silent throughout this conversation, he can still speak to Izuku. Izuku comforts himself with the fact that this is all for their own good. They'll suffer for now, but when the 3 of them return to the world as themselves, they won't have to worry about their loved ones being in danger. They won't have to worry about the gnome apocalypse. Won't have to worry about the Commission taking their friends and family and breaking their quirks in order to form better soldiers. When it's all said and done, they can live their lives peacefully. It's all for their sakes. Secret, silence, thank you for agreeing to meet with us. Nezu greets them as brightly as a grieving rat can. I'm surprised Sequence didn't join you. And the fishing for information begins. Sequence doesn't do field work. Izuku responds calmly. His voice modulator is barely applied, just enough to keep his real voice concealed, but not enough to make it obvious. We just have a few questions off the record. Tsukachi says, sounding more put together than he looks. His mask would work better if he didn't look like an absolute wreck. When the meeting is over with, we will part ways without trying to apprehend you. Quite courteous of you. Izuku says. I assume the information you're looking for has to do with your missing hero. As if there was any doubt. Hizashi breathes a quiet but broken breath, and Izuku's chest hurts knowing how much the man must be suffering right now. I hate this. I wish there was another way. Hitoshi mumbles through the calm. Izuku doesn't give any indication that Hitoshi said anything, but he silently agrees. Right then, straight to the point. Nezu says. A week before he went missing, you confronted Eraserhead to warn him. How did you know something would happen the night before his birthday? There was talk between vigilantes about a rumor of Eraserhead going missing that night. We saw fit to try and keep him safe. Izuku says. None of it is a lie. They are the vigilantes who talked about it, sure, and they also wanted to keep him safe in the moments after the jump's success. True, but why? Tsukachi asks. You two never seemed to care for Eraser's presence before, so what changed? Izuku and Hitoshi share a look before Izuku answers. We didn't care for him trying to arrest us or rehabilitate us, but that doesn't mean we don't care about a good hero's life. Then why, in his personal notes and the interview after your warning, did Eraser think you, specifically, didn't like him? Tsukachi asks. He said silence only spoke to him to aggravate him, and you barely spoke to him at all. I didn't speak to him, because I know he would have gotten too much information out of a few conversations from me. Izuku explains. Also true. Keeping his mouth shut around the old version of Shoyuda was torture, but it was better than trying to keep himself from being too familiar with him when he wasn't Izuku's Shoyuda. And silence is just like that. Hitoshi punches him in the arm, and Izuku absently rubs the ache it left behind. Dimen, those gloves are well made. They whole. Hitoshi grumbles. Can you go into more detail on how the vigilante community got word of Eraser's supposed impending disappearance? Nezu asks, eyes far more sharp than they were when the conversation started. Izuku carefully words his answer to keep it truthful, but not exposing. All I know is what Sequence knows. Izuku says slowly. Eraserhead's life was in danger, and it was going to happen on the night before his birthday. Sequence didn't know what would happen exactly, only that the possibility of Eraser going missing that night was high. All true. Tsukachi says, voice cracking. He clears his throat before speaking again. Why were you really at the apartment that same night? Silence? Hitoshi taps his arm to get his attention, tapping his mask as if asking for silent permission to speak while speaking through the calm, mind if I answer? Izuku nods silently at him. I went there to make sure Eraser was okay. We didn't want to scare him, but Eraser is a stubborn man. He wouldn't just bow down and do what we said without reason. Hitoshi says, his mask mimicking that of Nezu's voice. I never meant to get caught. Izuku clicks his tongue at the reminder in annoyance. Hitoshi quickly silences his mask again, crossing his arms. He's probably pouting right now. Izuku chewed him out good when he got back to base. Are there any more questions you would like to ask? Do you have any clue as to Eraserhead's whereabouts? Nezu asks, and wow, that's a tricky answer. Izuku tilts his head side to side as tries to find the right wording. If he lies, they'll quickly assume that he and Hitoshi know more than they're letting on, which is no good for the mission. I can't say anything for sure. Izuku says. However, we'll keep on the lookout, and bring him to you when we can if we can. True. Tsukachi says, and Izuku almost lets out an audible sound of relief. That could have been bad. Hitoshi says. Nezu seems to relax a bit, but his frown is even deeper than before. Guilt rolling in his chest, Izuku tries to help ease some of the pain in the four people's eyes. Eraserhead is a good hero, one of the best in the business. He has more friends on his side than you would think, than even he himself might not know of. He'll come home to you one way or another. Thank you, Secret. Nezu says, voice soft. We appreciate the help. Izuku nods, nudging Hitoshi's side for a retreat now that the conversation is over. Hitoshi nods silently and sprints back the way they came. Izuku goes to follow, but he pauses and turns back to the heroes. He regards them silently for a moment before looking at Hisashi, who looks near to tears. "Present, Mike," Izuku says. The blonde's head snaps up from where it had been hidden in the capture scarf. "Have faith. Your husband is stronger than he looks. He'll come back to you. I'll make sure of it." After all, Izuku turns away, preparing his gauntlet to take him away. Eraserhead is no one-trick pony. Hisashi seks in a gasp that's equal parts shattered glass and tempered steel, and Izuku flies away. The comm link opens up as his feet hit the rooftop. "Thank you for giving him hope," Shoyuta whispers. Izuku smiles to himself, a little sad, a little fond. "That promise is not one I'll break. One way or another, Shoyuta, I'll get you home." Izuku responds. Shoyuta doesn't respond, the comm link cutting out, but Izuku knows he's grateful. One way or another, even if it means sending him home. Before the work is done, or giving up his own life. Shoyuta is going home eventually, Izuku will make DMN sure of it. Right now, there's technically not many things for Hitoshi and him to go home to. Izuku has his mother, and maybe Kaken, but Hitoshi has no one. No one but Shoyuta and future that he will never let come true again. They don't have 1A, they don't have UA staff, but Shoyuta has way too much to lose. A husband and a daughter who is yet to be saved. An entire school's worth of friends. An underground information network that relies on him to keep streets safe. Heroes and vigilantes and villains across the country. Police, medical staff, firemen, and more. He has so many people waiting for him to go home, searching for him, relying on him. Shoyuta will go home, it is the only certainty Izuku knows. Even if the mission fails, Shoyuta will go home again. It's the least Izuku can offer. Hitoshi shifts as he remains crouched on top of the building. Izuku says he found Dabi, Todoroki Toya, and now it's just a matter of confronting the young man. They're currently on Shikoku Island, deep in the heart of one of the major cities. Hitoshi can't remember which one this is, he didn't really care. But according to Izuku, this is the area where Toya was last seen. They're spread out across the city, trying to cover more ground to locate Toya as soon as possible. Given he's the biggest threat at the moment compared to every other person on the list, Toya comes first. Right now, Hitoshi is scoping out a building with suspicious activity. They've been searching for Toya in whatever city this is for a week now with no luck, and with Izuku's permission, Hitoshi is allowed to do a little work towards the other part of the mission. The building he's scoping out is one of all-for-ones, at least Izuku thinks it is. So he's scouting it out to see if maybe he can take it out alone, or if he'll need backup from his partners. So far he hasn't seen much comings and goings, but he knows there's people in there due to his goggles' heat vision. He wonders if he'll get lucky and they slip up for him, or if he'll have to scout from the inside instead. He'd rather not, honestly. With this type of building, he'd surely have to rely on the ventilation to move around silently, and Hitoshi isn't a big fan of small spaces. Some of that's due to always being shoved in a closet his foster families will call a room, some of that is because of future bullshit, as he likes to call it. Either way, he hates the very idea of it. His mask picks up on audio that isn't from the building, and out of curiosity, he goes to find what the ruckus is all about. It sounds like a fight, and with as high as he has the auditory sensors right now, the fight could be anywhere from the next building over to a few blocks away. He doesn't care, he's tired of playing the waiting game. Sitting still isn't his forte. You stand still during the apocalypse, you get ambushed and killed. The golden rule is never stop moving, and no one can catch you. The fight gets closer as Hitoshi crosses rooftops, changing his direction when the mask's sensors shift to a single ear to indicate general direction. When the noise becomes loud enough to be overwhelming, he turns the auditory intake back down to normal levels to follow with his own hearing and instincts. It's not hard to find the fight he was looking for when a flash of blue light erupts briefly in an alley a couple buildings ahead. If that light means what he thinks he means, he might have just found their target. Activating the tracking device secured to his jacket sleeve to indicate a need for backup, Hitoshi drops down into the alley on silent feet. He lands behind a figure holding a knife in his hands, and Hitoshi doesn't hesitate to knock the giant man out. It's boringly easy and quick, and Hitoshi almost sighs. Diamin, he didn't even get an adrenaline rush. Deeper into the alley, a face all too familiar and at the same time not at all, stands still with blue flames encasing his fists. You alright? Hitoshi asks, because that's how these kinds of things are supposed to go and he doesn't want to spook Toya into running or attacking. The blue flames are put out, making Hitoshi have to let his eyes adjust to the dark of night. I was doing perfectly fine. Who the hell even are you? A hero? Toya, and yes, Hitoshi would recognize the voice of the homicidal maniac Dabi anywhere, bites out harshly. Nope. Just your friendly neighborhood vigilante. Hitoshi says. His voice is mimicking Tsukachi right now. Before they can speak any further, another figure lands in the alley beside Hitoshi, the height easily giving it away as Izuku. I see you found Toya. Izuku says in the private link. Oh great, now there's two of you. Good job, you stopped a mugging, you can go now. Toya growls. Hitoshi can see the slight panic hidden well by the mask of hate on Toya's face. He gets it, technically they are trapping Toya in the alley. Dad lands beside him soon after, and Toya's voice raises in pitch. Now three? Just get away from me already. Easy there. Izuku says. We aren't here to hurt you. Good, that's fine, so you can leave now. Toya snaps. He's edging further into the alley, but this one is deadened from what Hitoshi can tell. Todoroki Toya. Izuku says, and Toya's movements halt, frozen in panic. Well, at least he hasn't tried to fry them yet. How do you know that name? Who are you? Toya yells. I'm Silence, this is secret. Hitoshi gestures to Izuku, who gives a cheeky two-fingered salute. And this is Soldier. We're vigilantes, like I said. We've been looking for you. Did my father send you? Toya accuses, what he can see of Toya's eyes narrowing. Quite the contrary. Dad responds. He's not even bothering to use the voice modulator. We're preparing a case against Endeavor for child abuse, child neglect, spousal abuse, and at least 30 counts of excessive property damage, a minimum of 20 counts of excessive force and wrongful murder, among other transgressions. Toya seems to ease slightly in his confusion, hands lowering from he had raised them in preparation of using his quirk. What? You heard us. We've been looking for you, because with your testimony and your family's testimonies, along with what we already have on Endeavor, he won't be able to get out scot-free like he usually does. We've already begun shifting the public opinion of him. Izuku explains, stepping closer to Toya with hands raised in the universal sign of surrender. Those articles? Toya whispers, sounding like he's in awe. That was you. An associate of ours, yes. Hitoshi says. And you want my help? That is correct. Dad says. But he's the number 2 pro hero. Toya says, voice wobbling as he gets closer and comes a little more out of the shadows. He sounds hopeful but wary. And that matters none. No man, not even All Might, is above the law. And from what we know, Endeavor has been breaking the law for years, not only by public standards, but also personal ones. Izuku says, sounding more like the war veteran Hitoshi knows. The last couple of months let the two of them be kids again, even if only in their downtime. Toya steps even closer, and Hitoshi can now see the state of his scars. They aren't as bad as they were before his suicide mission to take out Endeavor, but there's still a few prominent ones that he can see. On the right side of his neck, peeking out from underneath his frayed collar, is a fresh red burn that looks like it hasn't healed or been tended to yet. On his right arm, there's a few smatterings of red and purple scars, but these look half or fully healed to him. His left wrist has a fresher burn than his neck, still bubbling harshly. None on his face yet. He's still got his dyed black hair, and his clothes are half falling apart. Toya's shoes are held together only by duct tape and spite at this point. The ratty clothes hang loosely off his frame, meaning he's probably severely malnourished. Hitoshi knows that with a healthy diet his frame will bulk up more, and eventually, he'll be almost as tall as Endeavor. Do you really think you can win against him? Toya asks, voice still shaky. From what Hitoshi can gather, the streets have him jaded, but not nearly as bad as he'll be with a few more years on them. There's still a little hope flickering in Toya's heart. Small weak, but it's there. And that's all they need. I don't think I know. Izuku responds. Will you let us help you? Izuku holds out a hand but makes no move to get closer, allowing Toya the chance to refuse. Toya seems to hesitate, looking at all three of them one by one, but after a few moments he steps forward and grabs Izuku's hand with his own trembling one. What do I need to do? Hitoshi can feel the smile radiating off of Izuku, the loosening of the tension in the air. For a while, the past few months actually, Hitoshi wasn't sure they could save Dabi. He was afraid they hadn't jumped far enough, that Toya would be lost by the time they got to him. Now, Hitoshi has more hope than ever that they can manage to complete their mission. First, we need you off the streets. Dad says as Toya drops Izuku's hand. We want to take you to a friend of ours, he's trustworthy. That has Toya's face shutting down again, looking at Dad with heavy suspicion in his eyes. Who would that be? He's a detective. Hitoshi answers. His quirk is called lie detection. He'll listen to your story, and he'll know it's the truth. He'll help you. Detective Tsukachi has friends in high places as well, so you'll be protected. Dad continues. Friends like who? Toya asks, still suspicious, but opening back up again. Principal Nezu of UA for one. All Might for another. He's highly respected in the system, he'll give you a home, a bed, and a chance to save your family. Izuku says. He lives just outside of Mizudafu, so the trip will be a few hours. We'll take you somewhere safe for the night, and drop by a department store for some new clothes and supplies before we head to his place. Are you sure about this? Toya asks, looking directly at Hitoshi. Some reason, he seems to think Hitoshi is the one to ask if his partners are trustworthy. Hitoshi wants to smile under his mask. Usually it's Izuku who the victims trust first. I'm sure. Hitoshi responds kindly. We'll keep you safe tonight. I don't know what to say, why are you offering this to me? You barely even know me. Toya says. It reminds Hitoshi of himself from another time. I don't understand, why are you doing this for me? I'm not even your student, you barely even know me. I didn't even win the sports festival. I don't have to know you to know that you deserve a chance, kid. What do you say? Ready to be a hero? We don't have to know you to know you deserve a chance. Hitoshi says, repeating words that changed his life once upon a time. Words that led to a warm bed and a little sister, and a loud pops and sleepy dad. Words that led to 18 friends and a boyfriend, to cuddle sessions and movie nights and family. Dad breathes in a sharp breath. What do you say? Ready to save your family? Toya's eyes wells up with tears that don't fall and he smiles. The first smile he's given since Hitoshi knocked the villain out for him. Yeah, let's go. I'll call this guy in. Izuku says. Meet you guys later. Will do. Hitoshi says, and the three of them leave Izuku in the alley to call the cops for a pickup. Toya walks slightly behind them, but Hitoshi soon falls back to walk beside him. Dad leads the way through the dark streets to the house they're squatting in right now. The family is on vacation in the Bahamas, and won't be back for a week. Thank you. Toya whispers. Hitoshi hums in response for a moment, tucking his hands in his pockets and pressing the buttons to warm them up. Beating up criminals, saving damsels, all a part of the job. Hitoshi says lightly. Toya snorts. I was hardly a damsel. He holds up his right arm where he flicks a tiny blue flame between his fingers like he's rolling a coin over his knuckles. Maybe so, but I would prefer to have saved you the burns. Hitoshi says, gesturing with his head to the bubbling burn on his left arm. Toya moves to cover it, but ends up stopping the motion halfway through. My quirk isn't suited for my body. It's whatever though, I'm used to it. Used to cooking from the inside out? I doubt that. Hitoshi responds. Tell me what your quirk is, maybe I can help. Yeah? And how are you supposed to do that? Toya asks. He sounds like he's humoring Hitoshi. I'm no secret, but I can analyze a quirk too. Every drawback can be fought, you know, just let me know what I'm working with. Hitoshi says. Of course, he's only half telling the truth. He can analyze a quirk a little bit, but he's always been better at reading people than quirks. It's what makes the three of them work so well with each other. Izuku analyzes the quirk, Hitoshi analyzes the personality and mannerisms, and Dad analyzes the motivations. He only half listens. When Toya explains the finer details of his quirk, prompted by questions Izuku asks through the comms that Hitoshi relays. It's not like they really need to know that much. Izuku and Hitoshi, and every one of the last 11, they all knew Dabi's quirk well enough. Izuku has a few theories on ways Dabi could use his quirk without hurting himself. The first theory is that it actually is a combination of his parents' quirks. The first direction it could go is that Toya's fire isn't supposed to be hot, it's supposed to be cold. Like an ice quirk inside of a fire quirk. The second direction is that his mother's constitution means the reason he keeps overheating and burning himself alive is because he's in the wrong environment. He's supposed to be living in freezing temperatures, which would make him a perfect candidate for mountain rescue heroics. The second theory is that because of endeavors, training, he only ever uses it at max percentage, when it might work like One for All did with Izuku. Toya might be able to manipulate the temperature of his flames, making it possible for him to have a normal fire quirk that can just get really FING hot if he wants it to. There's more theories, of course. Hitoshi just never bothered to learn them. Why would he? Dabi was dead for years before the jump, and B, all Hitoshi needed to know before Dabi's death was that fire is hot and to keep his distance. Hitoshi and Toya, with Izuku in Hitoshi's ear, discuss the details of Izuku's many theories as they make their way to their place for the night. The conversation helps Toya relax immensely. Dad keeps his distance, and Izuku trails behind them by a few blocks. It seems all three of them have clocked the fact that Toya is only comfortable with Hitoshi. Dad goes in first, while Hitoshi holds Toya back. At Toya's questioning and suspicious look, Hitoshi explains. Soldier is securing the house. After all, we have a high-profile witness to protect. You know, you guys act more like heroes than vigilantes. Toya muses, and Hitoshi fights to keep from tensing. A high-pitched whistle sounds out from inside the house giving the all clear, so Hitoshi nudges Toya to head on inside. So what now? He asks once they're inside, Izuku coming in a few minutes after them. They're all in the living room for the moment, given the three of them aren't comfortable using another person's bed, or to be separated from each other in unfamiliar territory. Right now, Izuku starts. You get some rest. There's another job we need to take care of before we head to the detectives tomorrow. What kind of job? Toya asks, raising an eyebrow. Dad flips on the light after closing the shades, and Hitoshi can see Toya more clearly. His raised eyebrow has a piercing, and there's a few cuts on his lip, possibly from other brawls. One you don't need to worry about. Dad says. He's in the kitchen, cooking up some food for Toya since he looks like he hasn't had a good meal in a long time. Of course, they're using food they bought themselves instead of what's already here. Toya looks displeased at the answer. Out of curiosity, Toya says a few minutes of silence later. Is there any way that I could join your little group? Not possible. Izuku says. Even if we were taking applicants, and we aren't, you couldn't join us anyways. We need you to be a credible source of information, and that means keeping you not only safe, but also above the law. I've already made sure there's no trace of your presence on any open cases, so now the rest is up to you. Just lay low, wait, and when the time comes, nail Endeavor to the floor with his own actions. Okay. Toya mutters, looking disappointed. Maybe if they weren't on the mission they were on, Hitoshi would fight to let the kid join them, but that's not the case. Besides, real vigilantes are notorious for being able to tip with a gust of wind. One bad night is all it takes sometimes to send them all the way into villainy. It's why underground heroes like Dad try to push them into getting licenses before they get the chance to fall into villainy. Keeping Toya as far away from becoming Dabi is the goal here, not give him a whole other opportunity to go villain. Don't worry. Secret and I can handle this little side job. Soldier will be here to keep you safe. Hitoshi says. Get some rest, we'll see you in the morning. Toya wakes up when Secret and Silence come back from whatever job they had to do. He can't help but feel relief. Silence is the only one he trusts, the other two just make him uncomfortable, in two entirely different ways. Secret creeps him out because he's always watching Toya, and the gaze reminds him a little bit like Endeavor, except a lot less malicious. Calculating and analyzing as if he's sizing Toya up like they're about to throw down in a fight, and Secret would win. Doesn't matter how short the guy is, Toya knows a threat when he sees one. And Soldier is just weird. Soldier makes him feel like a stray cat. Like at any moment, Soldier is going to snatch him up and take him home. It's not in any sort of disgusting way that he can tell, and Toya's instincts about people have sharpened since being on the streets, but still. It makes him uncomfortable. Is this, like, a pseudo-adoption thing going on? Is Soldier trying to parent him? Silence, he just seems like a pretty chill guy. Toya is about to sit up and welcome the two back when the three start talking. He stills immediately, keeping his breathing relaxed and even. He learned how to fake being asleep at a young age. He would be awake at night, silently crying in pain, and his mother had an almost compulsive need to check on her 3 kids. It was mainly when Shudo was still in the womb, her protectiveness rearing its head like a charging bull. When she checked on him and he was crying, then Mom would start crying, and then he'd have to calm her down before she woke Endeavor or Yumi or Natsu. It was just easier to pretend to be asleep. "How is he?" An unfamiliar voice answers, and Toya almost throws himself into a sitting position when he realizes that there's no subtle metallic tang to the voice indicating a voice modifier being used. They have their masks off. Holy shit, they have their masks off. He's been pretty quiet until he fell asleep. Not much talking, but he snores worse than Zashi. This one, presumably, is Soldier. Toya kind of wants to feel offended, but honestly with years' worth of smoke inhalation he wouldn't be surprised. I'd rather him snoring than trying to kill. This voice snorts, and Toya gets the feeling this one is definitely Silence. "That's true, I'll give you that." Soldier responds. "How was the job?" A groan echoes through the living room. "Frustratingly easy, but at least it's done." Silence says. "I wouldn't call a full-on raid with only 2 people easy." Secret says, and wow, maybe the shortness is due to how young he is. He sounds like a child just going through PBRY, cracky voice and all. Compared to Nomu it sure as hell was. Silence says. "What's a Nomu? Is that a gang? Either of you hurt?" "A few bruises but nothing we can't handle. Pretty sure these suits could tank a nuclear bomb." "Thank you, I try." Secret says, sounding smug and pleased. "Why are you taking credit? These aren't your designs, you just made them." Silence fires back. There's a gasp of offense, presumably from Secret. "Hey, I made a few modifications, which means I'm definitely a co-designer." "Good thing May isn't here to hear you say that." "Behave you too, I don't have the mental energy to deal with your bullshit." "So what's the plan from here?" Soldrats. Secret and Silence both grumble quietly for a moment. "Right now we rest. In the morning we take Toya to get some clothes to wear until Tsukachi has the chance to take him to the store. When we're back in Mustafu, one of us will need to run back to the base to get the files pertaining to Endeavor for Tsukachi. Then we drop him off at Tsukachi's." Secret responds. "We should give him a burner, just in case. That way if anything goes wrong he can contact us." Silence responds. "Are you sure that's wise? You know how Nao is, and besides he shouldn't use us as a crutch, especially since we'll be extremely busy." Soldier says. "I'm sure. I can coach him on how to answer Tsukachi's questions without giving us away. He needs a lifeline, he's too skittish to put full faith in us. Besides, he's a capable kid, more likely than not he'll rely on himself to get out of a heavy situation and then call us for backup." Secret responds. There's the sound of 2 zippers and some rustling. Are they taking off their badass jackets? Are they really not worried about Toya seeing their identities? Aren't vigilantes supposed to be paranoid with their identities? I'm actually surprised he wasn't as difficult to convince as I expected. I was fully expecting it to take weeks to get him to come with us, so this moves up the schedule a lot. "What's next on the list then?" Silence asks at the same time there's a loud oomph from the couch. "Toga Himiko. The sooner we get her out of that house the better. And actually, we only need 1 person for that job, so I'm thinking we split up to make things run faster. At least her case will be easier than exposing Endeavor or the Commission." Who else do you have in mind right now? Soldier says. I'm thinking twice. Do them two at the same time, and then we can focus on Shigaraki and Kurogiri. Their situations are more delicate than even Toya's, so it will take time, and we need to start as soon as possible. Secret responds. Toya wonders about that. His own situation is delicate due to his father's number 2 status, so does this mean he's not the only one? Are there more heroes abusing their kids? Toya wonders that if his theory is true, does this mean these two people are the kids of a hero even more high profile than Endeavor? Could they be All Might's kids? But that can't be true, this is All Might he's talking about. Would the symbol of peace really be like his father? Hey, Silence says suddenly, dragging Toya's attention back to his eavesdropping. I thought you said Toya snores? Busted. We know you're awake. Soldier says to Toya, and he bites back a flinch. No use pretending now. Toya sits up gingerly, keeping his eyes pointed at the ground out of respect towards their secret identities. Sorry. He mumbles. Don't worry about it, and you don't have to look at the ground, Toya. Silence says, still maskless. We have our hoods up. Toya hesitates, but he does look up to see that, yes, they are wearing their hoods up. Their jackets are still unzipped, showing a well-made set of shirts that look as heavy and uncomfortable as the jackets do. Their hoods hang over their faces in just enough shadow to disguise their features, but still see the colors of their eyes. Silence's eyes are the same shade of purple that accents their uniform, Secret's the same shade of green as well. Soldier's eyes are black, unlike the red on his uniform. On the coffee table lay 3 masks and 3 goggles, as well as a pair of gauntlet-looking things. Did we wake you? Secret asks. How much did you hear? I woke up when you walked in, so, everything? Toya answers awkwardly. Now he feels bad because these 3 are trying to help him and he's throwing it in their faces by eavesdropping. Then you should know. The names you heard? Don't repeat them to anyone else. Soldier says. Heroes are great and all, but these things, these people, need to be handled with a certain dash, Secret starts to say when Silence cuts him off with a helpful tone. C'est la vie. Secret hesitates, sighs, and then continues. Delicacy. Silence, I don't think that's the right expression. Silence shrugs, grinning like the Cheshire Cat. He definitely did that on purpose. I won't say anything, I promise. Toya says. Secret grins at him, and for some reason, it makes his shoulders relax a bit. Thank you. Now then, the sun should be up within the hour, so why don't you use the shower while the 3 of us get packed up? Toya tries not to sprint in the direction of the shower. They're on the train a little while later, Toya wearing some new clothes from a donation shop, clean like he is for the first time in months. The 3 vigilantes turned their jackets inside out while he was in the shower, and now they look like 2 kids and 2 teenagers. Secret and Silence have matching jackets in green and purple with cat ears on the hoods, while Soldier has a simple hoodie and leather jacket combo on his. They keep their hoods up the entire time, and Toya valiantly keeps his eyes away from them given the broad daylight and the lack of masks to hide their faces. Before he knows it, they're standing across the street from an unassuming, middle-class apartment. Soldier took off towards their base to grab the files, at Secret's behest, while Secret and Silence are back to being fully suited up with masks and goggles and uniform sides out. Toya feels like he's still dreaming. This is really happening. One moment he was a random kid on the street, starving and wary and untrusting, legally dead. Unable to find legal work due to not technically existing in the eyes of the law. Homeless and poor and bitter. The next moment he's psyching himself up to speak to this detective about his home life, armed with the backing of 3 vigilantes and a briefcase full of evidence on his father on the way. He's 20 years old and his life, his reality, has been completely upended by 3 strangers. 2 of which are actual children. Toya thinks they might be about how old Shudo is now. Thank you. Toya whispers to the 2 vigilantes on either side of him, flanking him like he's something to protect, someone important. He's not dumb, he knows most what they're doing for him is because he can be the last nail in his father's coffin. But they're still doing more for him than his parents, his tutors, teachers, and private doctors combined. Don't mention it. You know what you have to say. Toya nods, repeating the words he's rehearsed in his head the entire journey here. My name is Todoroki Toya, eldest son of pro-hero Endeavor. The vigilante's silence, secret, and soldier brought me here after finding me in the search of your missing hero, Eraserhead. My father abused me, and is still abusing my family, and they want your help to take him down. No hero is untouchable. Good, that'll get you in the door. Once you're inside, answer his questions truthfully and thoroughly, even if it hurts to talk about. The sooner Tsukachi has all the information he needs, he can start working against Endeavor. Secret says for what must be the 10th time. He's a bit of a worrier, Toya has learned through this process. If he asks anything about us, and I'm sure he will, try to keep things vague. When you first walk in though, before he starts asking questions, give him this letter for me. Toya takes the envelope handed to him gently, slowly. He suddenly feels like he's running out of time. Is this it? Is this the last he'll see of his heroes? Toya. Silence says, making him look up through the stinging in his eyes. We'll be checking up on you periodically to make sure things are running smoothly and that you're safe. This isn't goodbye. Take care of yourself, all right? You have our number if you need us. I can't thank you enough for all of this. Toya says, thank us by being happy, safe, and taking care of your family. Soldier says from above, before landing gently enough on the ground of the alley that there's hardly any noise. He has the briefcase of evidence against his father in hand, which Toya takes hold of. Okay. Toya responds. He looks at the house he's expected to go to. It looks relatively normal. 2 stories, a red brick exterior, a small front lawn, and a plain black car in the driveway. There's 2 little plants on the small concrete slab of a porch that look a little underwatered, and 2 chairs and a small end table to the side of the door. It looks well loved, but not immaculate, traditional but not suffocating. It looks like the exact opposite of the prison-like estate he was raised in. Okay. Toya repeats out loud, more sure of himself. With one last look to the vigilantes, who encourage him gently, Toya crosses the quiet street and knocks on the door. It's opened by a plain-looking man, who looks like he hasn't slept well in years, with morning shadow and a cup of coffee in hand. He's the type who's built for speed, but hides it under his trench coat, which is so cliché Toya doesn't want to call him on it. Hello, can I help you? The man says. Tired, but not unkind, gentle but firm. Taking a deep breath to steel his nerves, Toya rushes through the rehearsed words while also holding out the envelope. My name is Todoroki Toya, and I'm the eldest son of pro-hero Endeavor. Naomasa, after registering that everything the kid said rang true, let Todoroki inside. Okay. Naomasa says, running a hand over his face and then over his head. Would you be all right with answering questions at the station, or would you prefer to do it here instead? Here please. Todoroki says quietly, following after him when Naomasa heads to the living room. The kid sits hesitantly on the couch, clutching the giant briefcase like a lifeline. Naomasa gestures for him to hold on a second as he makes a phone call to the station he's scheduled to be at today. He kind of doesn't have a set location, they kind of let him jump around to different stations in the area as needed. It happens often enough that he gets his own office at every precinct he regularly visits. The call is quick, letting the answering officer know that he wouldn't be able to come in today due to unforeseen circumstances. When he's done, he drops by the kitchen to grab a couple bottles of water since his kitchen is bare of most everything. He was gonna go grocery shopping after work, but oh well. Back in the living room, he settles onto one of his love seats. Since he's already pretty much ready for work, he has his portable recorder with him, so he takes it out and holds it up to the nervous kid in front of him. Do you mind if I record this so we don't have to start from the beginning when a case is officially open? If a case is opened, he'll determine whether everything the kid says is actually true through questions, since there are ways of tricking his quirk, as difficult to do as they may be. I don't mind. Todoroki says, still quiet and wary. His fingers nervously fiddle with the handle of the briefcase in his lap. The vigilantes told me to tell you to read the letter before questions though. Having almost completely forgotten about the letter, he pulls it out of his pocket to read as quickly as possible. Dear Detective, the search for your hero is ongoing, and I know you blame yourself, but don't. Eraser is a stubborn man. Even if you had handcuffed him and drugged him, he would have found a way to leave if he really wanted to. I'm sorry we couldn't help more, but right now Toya needs your help more than anything. In the briefcase is all of the evidence compiled against Endeavor Sequence could find, not including evidence of abuse. At the very least, what's in that briefcase will get his hero license revoked. I suggest, to get evidence of the abuse, approach the Todoroki family in secret while Endeavor is away on a mission. Specifically Shuto. Rei as well, but keeping a visit to her quiet will be difficult, so use caution. Toya, Shuto and Rei are the main three who can give evidence against Endeavor for his crimes in the household. Fuyumi and Natsuo were largely neglected all their lives, so they will have less, but they will still be helpful. Be prudent, ask for help from Nezu, and trust us. Toya deserves a chance, so be the one to give him it. We owe you a favor for this, detective. Use it wisely. After all, we have eyes in many places and we know many things. Secret, silence and soldier. P.S. Call him Toya. He doesn't like his family name. It'll help make him trust you more. Naomasa runs a hand through his hair, rereading the letter before tucking it back in the envelope for later use. Are you ready to answer some questions, Toya? Todoroki Toya looks up from the coffee table in shock at his formal name. Is it all right if I call you Toya? Always better to be sure. Toya is fine, he says, and Naomasa doesn't draw attention to the small smile on the kid's face. Setting the recorder up on the table between them, Naomasa starts the interview as he always does. This is Detective Tsukachi Naomasa of the Mizutofu Police Department. It is 7:06 in the morning, and we are currently in my home as was requested. For legal purposes, I must inform you that my quirk is called Lie Detector. I will be able to tell if what you are saying is the truth or not. Do you accept the terms of the interview? Toya straightens up, clears his throat, and speaks louder than he has since he got here, but that's not saying much. I accept. Very well, I would like to inform you that at any time if you would like to take a break, just inform me, and we can continue the interview once you're ready. Can you please state your name, age, and date of birth for the record? My name is Todoroki Toya, eldest son of pro hero Endeavor. I'm 20 years old, and my date of birth is the 6th of December, 2XX. True. Can you state the reason for the interview, please? My father, pro hero Endeavor, has abused me and my family since his marriage to my mother, Todoroki Rei, maiden name Himura. Toya says, sounding far more confident than before. He's doing the interview very well, almost like he had been shown how to do so professionally. Sort of like a hero would. The vigilantes, or Endeavor? True. Can you give a vague description of the abuse for now? We'll go into detail as the interview continues. The real abuse for me and my siblings didn't begin until I turned of age for my quirk, but he abused my mother from the day the marriage contract was signed. Endeavor bought my mother in a quirk marriage, making the contract in his favor so if she ever tried to leave him, she would be taken to court and sued for everything she owned, even us kids. When I turned 5, my twin sister, Todoroki Fuyumi, and I both received our quirks. Fuyumi's quirk wasn't a powerful one, so he ignored her, but mine was. He began abusing me in the guise of training for most of my life. Toya takes a deep breath to keep going, but Naomasa holds a hand up to stop him. His blood is boiling underneath his skin as every word spoken rings true, but he keeps his cool as much as possible. This is all true. Before you continue, I have a few questions, if you are all right to continue. I'm fine. Ask away. Naomasa isn't fine, but that's not the point. You say that Endeavor bought your mother in a quirk marriage. Do you know of any surviving documents to confirm your claims? My mother kept a copy hidden inside the house, but I don't know where. She changed the hiding place every month to keep Endeavor from finding them. Toya informs him. Naomasa writes that down in his notepad as he asks his next question. And you say your quirk was deemed strong by Endeavor. Can you elaborate? My quirk is called cremation. I create flames that run as hot as 3,000 degrees Celsius, thus hotter than even Endeavor's quirk, Hell Flame. Toya produces a tiny blue flame on the end of his pointer finger, and Naomasa watches in concern as only those few seconds cause his skin to become red and agitated. Due to my mother's quirk, I don't know the exact name of it, but it's a relatively strong ice quirk. My body doesn't handle the flames that I produce, so they burn me. True. You may continue where you left off. Naomasa says, even though his stomach is churning already. They've barely gotten started and already he feels sick to his stomach and burning with rage. When the fact of my quirk hurting my body was discovered, Natsuo had already been diagnosed quirkless, and Shudo was already conceived. At the age of 3, Shudo's quirk came in early. The perfect balance of fire and ice Endeavor had been working towards. To prevent Endeavor from forcing a 3-year-old to train as hard as most hero schools train 15-year-olds, I offered myself as a distraction, training harder than ever without a complaint. Even as the burns started to become worse, ending up as scarring over my body. Toya's face begins to grow pale, but his eyes are focused hard on the recorder, his hands twitching as they fiddle with the handle of the briefcase more. By the age of 5, Shudo was forced into training as well, and we were forced to spar against one another. At the age of 17, Shudo the age of 10, At this Toya hesitates, clears his throat again, and looks away from Naomasa as he continues. Just that action has dread flooding his system. I couldn't take it much more. I had begun to hate my baby brother, and when I realized this myself, another hesitation. I faked my death and ran away. I've lived on the streets ever since. This is all true. Naomasa grits out between his teeth. We will take a break and continue this interview in a few minutes. With that he quickly shuts off the recorder. Toya startles. I don't need a break though. I do. Naomasa growls, standing up to get some distance. He doesn't leave the room, but he turns his back on the traumatized kid behind him to try and calm himself down. He's seen and heard of some pretty effed up things in his career, but this is by far one of the worst. In that moment, Naomasa knows in his heart, he's going to do anything and everything he can for this kid and his family. I'm putting you in therapy as soon as you're settled in. He says out loud. Settled in? Toya asks from behind him, sounding hesitant. Naomasa turns to look at him and the hope on this kid's face absolutely rips his heart into a million pieces. God, this kid has been failed in so many ways. If and when they find Shoyuta, he'll never tease him for his dad. Tendencies again. You think I'm letting you back on the street after hearing all of that? And that's just a vague explanation? Hell no. Naomasa hisses out. I swear to God if Endeavor comes within 10 feet of me anytime soon, we might be sending me to prison instead. You Toya's breath hitches. You believe me? First of all, lie detection quirk. Second of all, this is all so effed up I wouldn't need a quirk to see you're telling the truth. Naomasa says. He groans long and hard. I need more coffee. He heads into the kitchen to brew another pot of coffee, using the waiting time to try and cool himself down. This is going to be a long day. With a cup of coffee in hand, his breathing even again, and the rage simmering down enough he stops seeing red, he heads back into the living room to continue the interview. But first, he needs to make a list of things to do. Settling the notepad on his knee, he begins scribbling on a new page. What are you doing? Toya asks, curious and closer than before. When Naomasa looks up, the kid is standing to the side of his chair and trying to read his handwriting without getting too close. He tilts the notepad so the kid can see better. Making a list. You'll need clothes, a phone, some burn cream, a set of sheets and a comforter. I have a guest bedroom, but all that's in there is the bare furniture. A laptop, maybe some decorations. Naomasa continues muttering out loud as he lists more items on the notepad. Groceries for 2, some toiletries like toothbrushes and shampoo and things. A lamp for the desk. You said you left at 17, so I'll look into testing your school knowledge later. Oh, and some things to entertain you while I'm at work. Video games. Kids like video games, right? Never had the chance to play any. Toya says casually, getting closer and settling lightly on the arm of his chair. Naomasa is too distracted to notice or care. Definitely video games and books. You'll need a key to the house, and sheet. I need to get you re-registered in the system. God, that'll be a pain. And an emergency call button. You need that just in case you're in trouble and need help. Some therapy, maybe a quirk specialist too, to help with the flames burning you. You're really getting into this, huh? Toya says, sounding amused. Naomasa ignores him, still muttering as he continues his list. You'll need to be updated on all of your shots as well. Not a dog. I'll need to get you checked out by recovery girl, she's great with kids. Not a child. Oh my god, I'm too young to be a father. Naomasa suddenly whispers in horror, staring at the notepad in his lap blankly. What do fathers do? How does this work? How do you take care of a child? I barely take care of myself. You should slow down a bit there, buddy. I should buy parenting books, surely they can tell me what to do. Not a toddler. Can take care of myself. And I need to lock up the weapons. I know how to use a gun, idiot, I lived on the streets. I should figure out rules too, kids need rules, right? That's fair, still not a child though. And maybe Detective. Toya yells and Naomasa stops talking to look at the kid. He looks embarrassed, maybe a little pleased, more than a little annoyed. Don't we need to continue the interview? For a moment Naomasa flounders on what the hell he's talking about, and then it comes to him. Oh yeah. Oh my god, he's a dumbass. Toya whispers to himself, moving back to the couch. Naomasa gasps harshly. It rang true? That is so mean. That is a lie, you take that back.